Well, we have a lot of news. One, Bryce Young is getting benched for Andy Dalton. And yes, this is good for Deontay Johnson. It's good for Deontay. I think it kind of sucks for NFL fans because obviously the Young experiment was not going well. It seemed like Bryce Young was going to turn into nothing. But at this point, it almost puts the nail in the coffin for Bryce Young and his NFL career. So it's just a sad day when one of the young quarterbacks with potential upside, I don't know, turns out to officially be nothing. I know some people have possibly thrown out some ideas of, oh, maybe he gets dealt. Oh, if he goes to Miami, blah, blah, blah. If he goes to Miami, I think it will actually be a little bit better than Skylar Thompson, or hopefully, we'll see. Second thing is we get confirmation Isaiah Pacheco, broken fibula. Sounds like Pacheco, from what I read, is going to be missing anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks. So yes, this means that the Chiefs running backs, they are the number one priorities off the waiver wire this week. Now the question is, are you going to be going with Carson Steele? Are you going to go Samaje Perine? And Kareem Hunt is actually visiting the Chiefs today. So maybe we get Kareem Hunt news. I'm expecting Perine to be the third down back. I'm expecting Carson Steele to take the majority of touches on first and second down. But obviously, if Kareem Hunt's thrown into the mix, then it's very difficult to project the backfield. And then we also get news regarding a Mr. Cooper Kupp. And that with Cooper Kupp, sounds like he is potentially going to be headed over to the IR. So, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult situation. It's tough to be very excited about it. I have updated a couple of my rest of season rankings over on flockfantasy.com. I will run them by you real quick just to get your thoughts. And of course, I'm updating my rankings on the site pretty much every single day. So looking at this, let's head over to wide receiver. Wide receiver, I have Cooper Kupp now down at wide receiver 22. Obviously, we are going to be getting some additional information hopefully soon regarding the Los Angeles Rams here, but there's a chance that Kupp falls a little bit further than this. There's a chance that maybe he dodges the IR, just possibly, and he is a little more exciting. But obviously, a brutal break for the Rams, and it does appear that Demarcus Robinson is also a high-quality waiver wire pickup this week. And then going over to Pacheco with the Pacheco news, I went ahead and I moved Pacheco down to RB28 in our rest of season rankings under the assumption that Pacheco is probably going to be out 6 to 8-ish weeks. I don't know. Obviously, as we get more information regarding this injury and we get more details in general, I will continue to update the rankings over there on the site. So any of the site subscribers, y'all will get a great sense of where I have these guys. And then, yeah, our week 3 rankings not out just yet, but I will be in the lab cooking those up tonight. But let's head over to the question side of flockfantasy.com and let's start getting some of these fulfilled. Now, a couple different things, of course, y'all know you can always purchase a question over there on flockfantasy.com, whether that is a start-sit question, a trade question, or a full-blown roster review, really up to you. I will remind y'all, however, that definitely the cheapest way to get a roster review on flockfantasy.com is taking advantage of the promo that we have with Underdog Fantasy, where if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you're going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, if you are new to Underdog Fantasy and use code FLOCK and make at least a $10 deposit, there are a ton of promos that are dropping today as well. I mean, all week pretty much. We have the Profit Boost tokens today for Monday. Tuesday, we have the CeeDee Lamb free pick dropping. You have NFL and MLB discounts dropping on Wednesday. Another Profit Boost on Thursday. You have college football discounts on Saturday. And then selection discounts. You have additional NFL discounts there. So make sure you take advantage of that and make sure you use promo code FLOCK. All you have to do is make sure that you have an account set up on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you used on Underdog Fantasy. That way, when we go to credit your account with the free team review, we can find it. And I know we just said make sure 1,000 times, but let's go ahead and let's dive into this first trade question. Coming out from Jay Rodrigue. I mean, he's asked a bunch of questions through this. I really do appreciate you, my friend. This is a 10-team start 8 league. Our other receivers are A.J. Brown, Olave, McLaurin, Keon Coleman. Other running backs are Brees, Derrick Henry. So honestly, I mean, this is a spot where we can afford to go ahead and make this deal. Since it's a 10-team format, I honestly don't care as much about the depth here as getting that top-end asset. I know a lot of people are going to hate me based off just how good the J.K. Dobbins game was this past week. I have Dobbins ranked at RB24 in our rest of season rankings. I do think that he is that low-end RB2 at this point. But if you are looking at Garrett Wilson, this is a wide receiver that still continues to dominate in terms of the market share numbers, both in the intended targets and intended air yards that you have in New York. So I'm standing by what we have with Garrett Wilson as the best asset here. And a 10-team league, I want the best asset. Now let's go over, and this is going to be a team review for Obijan Kenobi. My friend, thank you for being a member of the flock. I'm going to be excited to check this out. I will say with the team reviews, obviously this is the league analyzer over there on flockfantasy.com. You can link your team for free and you can view your exact power rankings in your league in terms of a value perspective. And yeah, after updating my rankings, it looks like my team in the flock league is a little bit falling down, primarily because the McLaurin fall off and having to move Jalen Waddle down the rankings because of Tua. But you're saying I still have confidence in this team, but I don't have many breakout players. Not sure if I should try to change anything. You don't have incredible running back depth or receiver. I don't care, my friend. Honestly, with this being a 10-team league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I think that you're in a great spot where we can say, you know what? Depth just simply doesn't matter. Depth doesn't matter, and instead we want to be chasing the top-end players at the very premium positions. Now, looking at the squad, I don't know what you mean by you not having many breakout players. We're number 1 in the league analyzer, and I think that a big reason for this is Nico Collins and Devon Achane. We'll talk about them both. But first off, at quarterback, having Dak and Jared Goff as QB1, QB2 in a 10-team league, obviously not super exciting. You are playing the matchups between these two guys, but without the rushing upside here and a 10-team format, I think it's going to be a very difficult spot to get excited about this being your QB room. Going over to running back, I mean, we are honestly kind of fine here. We have Gibbs. We have Devon Achane as well. So we have double anchor RB. And honestly, going into the future, with this being a full PPR format, I have both Gibbs and Achane graded out as top 12 assets in fantasy football at this point. Even with the Tua injury regarding Achane, I mean, you actually had the coaching staff coming out in Miami today and saying that Achane is actually going to be seeing more touches going into the future because he has earned them. The depth of the running back room, I don't necessarily love. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is in a pretty big committee here in Dallas. If you were looking at Alexander Mattison, I thought he was a very interesting waiver wire pickup after week 1. But now that we actually see that this is turning into a 3-man backfield, where Zamir White did have the vast majority of the work, I actually think that you send Alexander Mattison back to the waiver wire and look to see if we can pick up somebody else instead. Going over to receiver, I think that there are brighter days ahead for Jamar Chase. Bengals offense starting a little slow in general, plus with Jamar Chase obviously missed so much time during training camp. Nico Collins, I've officially moved up as a top 12 asset in fantasy football. I mean, what's crazy about Collins is if you look at the game last night, yes, he absolutely dominates, but it's from a market share perspective. Collins has like 50% of the passing volume here in Houston. So if we begin to get some of these CJ Stroud performances, where Stroud has 350 passing yards, things could get even better for Nico Collins. I think things could get a lot better for Tank Dell as well if we get those larger performances from CJ Stroud just from a volume perspective. Christian Kirk looks like total dust. Like, I don't think you can start Kirk anytime soon. Allen Lazard, I think that this is another player that was an interesting waiver wire pickup after week 1. But after seeing what actually happened with the Mike Williams usage, where Mike Williams was just capped to 15 snaps for the first week here, and actually going into the future, it does look like Mike Williams is going to be expanding his role. We saw that in week 2. I think Allen Lazard, somebody that you can send back to the waiver wire and you can continue to churn. Going over to tight end, Trey McBride is my tight end 1 rest of season. I think it's hard not to have him there if you look at the performances of Laporta as well as Kelsey. Depending on the game that you get from Kyle Pitts in about 2.5 hours, there's a strong chance that Kyle Pitts could be a very interesting sell high candidate, understanding that throughout your entire league, I mean, pretty much throughout all of fantasy football, the tight end position is just fallen off entirely. I wouldn't fault you for seeing if we could trade Kyle Pitts and Dak Prescott to go get a top end quarterback. Like going through and looking for some of these bad tight end rooms, I mean, this team currently not even rostering a tight ends. Obviously, they don't have a quarterback that we are that excited about. Maybe in this instance, you could see if we could trade like Kyle Pitts and Tank Dell to go and get Garrett Wilson. I think that would be an absolute no-brainer. Going over here, I mean, what is up with these teams not having tight ends? They don't really have any viable quarterback either. That is just a garbage team outside of their running back room. But nonetheless, if we can take Kyle Pitts and we can go through and we can sell Pitts in a package, get an upgrade elsewhere, I would be really excited about that. But you know what I'm just thinking right now? If there are multiple teams in this league not rostering a tight ends, what that actually probably means is it probably means that the tight end position here is not a true tight end slot, but instead it's a league where you can start a receiver / tight ends. And if that's the case, I am way less excited about this team, because if that's the case, tight end doesn't matter nearly as much. And I think one of the reasons we are number one with the league analyzer here is specifically because we have so much value at this tight end position. So if that is the scenario where you don't have to start a tight end, then I think at that point, it's going to be a lot tougher to navigate. And really the only moves to be made are cutting Alexander Madison and Alan Lazard and refreshing and picking up new guys off waivers like Quentin Johnston and Carson Steele. But if it's a league where you have to start a tight end, I'd also love to see if we could sell Kyle Pitts and Dak Prescott to go get a top end quarterback in fantasy. Because if it's a league where you only start 2 receivers in a flex, I would be really interested in that. But let's go ahead and let's move this over to the next question. This one would be a trade question from Jacob. So looking at this, it is a 4-for-4 deal. And typically, I am not a fan of making trades like this. If you are trading so many assets away from your team to another squad, fundamentally, there's no way it's a win-win for both parties. Typically, what you're going to see here is you're going to see that one team makes off like a bandit. The other team typically is kind of just getting robbed. Now, going ahead and looking at the running backs here, I think I would rather have McCaffrey rest of season over Travis Etienne. Looking at some of the receivers, JSN, Rome Odunze, I would probably rather have Jackson Smith and Jigba. Mike Evans versus Devonta Smith, extremely close. Brian Thomas, Nick Chubb, probably give me Brian Thomas. So honestly, I think that we want to go ahead. We want to take this side of the trade. Because if you look at JSN, I mean, I previously went from thinking that Jackson Smith and Jigba was a wide receiver that wasn't startable in fantasy until you saw the breakout. But the breakout is here, baby. I mean, JSN looks like somebody that you are, at this point, considering at wide receiver 2 or the flex spot every single week. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's dive into our next trade. This one coming out from Connor. This is Joe Mixon versus Ramondre Stevenson and Shaheed. Looking to upgrade from Stevenson. What do you think? So I personally have Ramondre Stevenson in the Flock League. And if I could add a depth receiver to Stevenson to go get Joe Mixon, it's an absolute no-brainer. Give me Joe Mixon here. Now, the question, of course, is what does this Joe Mixon injury look like? Does this turn into something that we actually need to be concerned with for Mixon to get back into the game? I mean, from last night, I didn't necessarily think that it was something that I was too worried about. And yeah, I can't see any reason to be that scared. The issue with Ramondre Stevenson is that the New England Patriots offense is just not going to be nearly as strong as what you're going to have with Houston going into the future. So I probably would have Joe Mixon. Now going over, this is going to be a team review for Beast Mode. Team name Club Shay Shay. My friend, thank you. Going to be excited to check this out. This is a 10-team start 8 full PBR format. So it's a 10-team league, but you can start up to 4 receivers from a week-to-week perspective. Said, hey, Mason, after week 2, I'll be down 0-2. Is there any advice such as trades or waiver wire pickups for us to make? So wide receiver depth is somewhat important here in this league in particular. Now going over to quarterback, we have Stroud. Stroud in a 12-team league, I really like as my QB1. In terms of our QB in a 10-team format, definitely okay. Am I super pumped about it? Probably not, but he's definitely can get the job done. Going over to running back, we have Achane. Achane, like I said, he is a top 5 running back for me rest of season. Kenneth Walker, the report that we recently got was that they're going to be cautious with this injury, and potentially Walker is going to be out for a couple weeks, which would be absolutely devastating. But you have Tony Pollard stepping in here. Pollard, I mean, with the Spears injury especially, looks like he is a very easy fill-in. We also have Zach Charbonnet, who's a must-start guy every single week regardless as well. So we have the running back production at the top end. We have the depth. Obviously, it's a little frustrating dealing with the Jonathan Brooks and Kenneth Walker injuries, but it is what it is. And going over to wide receiver, I do want to reiterate, this is a team that can start 4 receivers from week-to-week perspective, so the wide receiver depth actually does matter. We have Tyreek, we have London, we have Dell, we have JSN, and we have a couple quality depth pieces here in Jamison, Deontay, and Darnell Mooney. So honestly, if this was a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, I would be screaming to throw together a deal with Jackson Smith-Njigba and Kenneth Walker to go get the best running back upgrade we could get. But with this being a league where you can start 4 receivers from week-to-week perspective, honestly, I actually really like holding on to these guys with the prototype of JSN, who has that upside to turn into a wide receiver 2 rest of season. So actually, probably holding on here if you wanted to do anything, maybe Jameson Williams can be that name. You throw in a deal with Tony Pollard, throw in a deal with Kenneth Walker to see if you can go get a running back upgrade, because still it's a 10-team league. So there should be decent options available to you off the waiver wire. And then going over to tight end, you have Sam Laporta. I had to move Sam Laporta down to our tight end 2 rest of season. Obviously, it's been absolutely garbage through the first 2 weeks. What's so disappointing from Laporta is you had 55 pass attempts for Jared Goff this week, and you had a whopping 3 targets going in Laporta's direction. 3. Let me down week 1. Let me down week 2. Sucks. I still think that he is a tight end that I would never bench, so I'm not rostering another guy at the position right now. So what I would probably do at this point is see if we can sell Jameson in a 2-for-1 deal to get an upgrade at running back. If you're 0-2 and you're afraid of falling to 0-3, maybe you look to sell Jonathan Brooks in that upgrade and just get some production in your lineup right this second. I think based off what we saw with the running back usage here in Las Vegas, Alexander Madison does appear to be a guy that you can cut, turn the waiver wire, go look for a player like Carson Steele. And then with Darnell Mooney, obviously we were kind of holding off to see what happens tonight. But let me head over to the Create Rankings page. I know the Create Rankings page on vlogfantasy.com on the creator end is still a little bit outdated. Hopefully we get this pushed up, the update here as well. But I probably need to move Alexander Madison down a bit based off what we just saw in the starts at tool. So we actually probably need to update a couple of these running backs on the bottom end. I think Bucky Irving maybe ends up having to jump all the way ahead of Ty Chandler at the very minimum. We can even revisit moving Irving up a little bit higher than that. And looking at where we previously had Alexander Madison, I think I'd probably rather have Ray Davis over Alexander Madison. I'd rather have Khalil Herbert. I'd rather have Antonio Gibson. I'd for sure rather have Braylon Allen. I think we can move Braylon Allen up here close to about the same range as Bucky Irving. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's get those out. But I do think that Alexander Madison is that guy that you can go ahead and cut. I mean, he was an interesting pickup, but the usage has changed here in Las Vegas. But really do appreciate you, my friend. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way. I definitely think the team will be better going into the future. We just have to kind of deal with a couple of these injuries. And hopefully we get Tyreek back as a wide receiver 1 soon. I mean, I wouldn't mind on an 0-2 team to pivot off of Tyreek to Chase. Can you all spam the live chat right now? Who would you rather have rest of season? Would you rather have Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase? Because obviously with Chase, he's been disappointing in his own right. But with Tyreek, you are now dealing with Skylar Thompson potentially as his QB. Okay, we got Tyreek, Chase, Tyreek, Chase, Tyreek, Chase. So those look like the vast majority of people are on Tyreek there. I'm actually probably going to stand with Chase over Tyreek in my rankings rest of season based off the Tua injury. But I have Chase in the Flock League, so obviously I'm very biased. But let's move over to a trade question coming out from Creel. Rest of season outlook, we have no short-term running back depth. So rest of season in a full PPR format, I think I may still prefer having Rashad White over Ramondre Stevenson straight up. The reason being is Rashad White has the receiving usage. We saw it last year. He's had 7 receptions through the first 2 weeks this year. I think the Bucs offense is also better than the Patriots offense. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson's been much better so far this season. I have them ranked back-to-back. I have Rashad White RB17. I have Ramondre RB18. If we are getting on really any additional piece, such as Khalil Shakir, I think we go with the Ramondre Stevenson side. But like I said, I do have White and Stevenson ranked back-to-back. I do think it's kind of up to you there. Now let's go over to another team review. This is from Hot Daddy. I think we've checked this team out before. Excited to look at it again. My friend says 0-2 and don't want to get in a hole early. Any moves or pickups? So we're 0-2, but it looks like we have a considerable amount of value on this squad. It's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, so that wide receiver depth doesn't matter that much. But since it's a 12-team league, the options on the waiver wire aren't going to be stellar. So at quarterback, we're sitting pretty. We have Jalen Hurts, obviously, with Hurts still in a range where you're rostering him every single week. You're starting him every single week, regardless of matchup. You don't need to roster a QB2. Going over to running back, we have Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, I stand by. He's a top 5 running back, especially with this being a full PPR format, where not only do you have the upside with how good this offensive line is, but at the same time, you have the receiving usage for Jahmyr Gibbs. Ramondre Stevenson, RB2, looks like a strong spot. Like I said, Ramondre has my running back 2 in the flock league. He has been absolutely crushing it. We have some depth pieces here at running back. We have Singletary, Spears, Braylon Allen. I think if you were to have an injury to Pollard, Spears is a must-start back. If you were to have an injury to, say, Brees, Braylon Allen is a must-start back. We could potentially say that regarding Tank Bigsby, depending on the Bigsby injury with ETN. Now, going over to wide receiver, dealing with the A.J. Brown injury obviously is going to be tough because when we have the Hurts, A.J. Brown stack, A.J. Brown goes down. All of a sudden, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown are both less exciting. We're relying on London heavily here as wide receiver 1. With this being a 2 wide receiver 1 flex league, we're very lucky that we don't have to be rostering too many of these guys because, we have London, Pickens, Jameson right now as the players that we're looking to start. I will say Greg Dortch is probably a safe drop at this point. I thought Greg Dortch was an interesting pickup after week 1. Looks like I was just completely wrong with that sentiment. I think you should be able to find a better receiver off the waiver wire, especially if you have someone like Quentin Johnston, Demarcus Robinson, Jalen Tolbert available to you. Going over to tight ends, hopefully we're getting Ferguson back this week because obviously Kate Otten lays the goose egg as you have just every single target in this offense going towards Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So overall with this team, the issue, of course, comes down to the A.J. Brown injury kind of holding us back and negatively impacting our stack overall. The Ferguson injury hurts, of course, as well. We don't really have the expendable pieces to make a 2-for-1 deal because we are dealing with said injuries. Overall, if you were wanting to do something here, honestly, I hate to say it. I really think it's just working the waiver wire. I think it's cutting Greg Dortch. And if Ferguson does come back this week, I'll also cut Kate Otten and just roll with Jake Ferguson. Or maybe if you have, Hunter Henry available to you on your waiver wire, you cut Kate Otten and go pick up Hunter Henry anyway. I think Hunter Henry is actually a player that we forgot to update the rankings with on the site. Let's go ahead and let's see where we had Henry ranked before and how high this man has to move. I'd rather have Henry over Kraft. Real quick, Parkinson probably has to move up as well, given the injuries that we have in Los Angeles. I think I'd probably move Frymuth behind these guys. Like Henry's probably tied in 17, but definitely would rather have him over Kate Otten at this point. But let me know in the live chat, would y'all have any recommendations for this team? Like if you're this team, what can you do other than pray that A.J. Brown comes back sooner rather than later? Let me know in the live chat. What would you do with this team? Durag says, would y'all trade Jamar Chase right now? I have Chase in the flock league. I watched the game. Jamar Chase pissed me off to no end. But the reality of the situation is you can't trade away Jamar Chase because you're not going to get anything. Okay. It says waiver wire. Yeah, I think waiver wire is really the only thing you can do. Alex says sell high on Ramondre. I don't mind the idea of selling high on Ramondre, but who does he put in at running back 2? And in terms of upgrading at running back 2 in a 2-for-1 deal, he sells Jamison Williams and Ramondre Stevenson to go get that better running back. It's hard to do with A.J. Brown being down. You don't have the depth because of the A.J. Brown injury. So maybe when A.J. Brown comes back and one of these receivers becomes expendable, then you package with Ramondre for an upgrade. But until then, it is going to be tough when we are just in on this Eagle stack. But Danny coming in says Nico Collins, wide receiver 4 rest of season. I moved Nico Collins up to 12 overall in my rankings on the site today, my guy. Let me see exactly where I put Nico. I put Nico at wide receiver 7. I still have A.J. Brown, Tyreek ahead of him. I saw the clip that you sent. I saw you said that you would rather have Nico Collins over Jamar Chase. I don't know if it's that I'm stuck with Jamar Chase for better or worse, but I think that we are going to get brighter days ahead. I think that we'll have brighter days ahead for Chase. So I'm standing by Chase right now. But let's go ahead and let's move this back over. And real quick, I actually got news from Underdog that they are dropping that Jalen Hurts special pick'em more than less than half total yard for anybody that's new to Underdog Fantasy if you use code FLOCK. And with code FLOCK, you'll get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. You'll get a free team review from me in one of these live streams. And at the same time, with code FLOCK, they have a ton of promos dropping later in the week, such as another CeeDee Lamb special pick'em more than less than half total yard, additional profit boost on Thursday. And yeah, we will take advantage of these profit boost tokens before the game kicks off. You better believe that. But let's move this over. And you can find that link in the description and comment section. And like I said, make sure you are using code FLOCK for that free Jalen Hurts pick and for that free team review in the live stream. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team. It's coming out from Zachary Jonas. His team name Better Call Hall says, first year playing fantasy. Huge fan of the work. Much love, my friend. Really do appreciate you. I'm happy with my RB1 and 2 quarterback tight ends. Feel like we have some solid receivers. Well, quick thing, my guy. One, this is a great team if we're looking at this in terms of the league analyzer. I can see immediately we already being ranked as the highest valued team. Oh my gosh. Wait, Deebo's hurt? What just happened with Deebo Samuel? All right. Give me a second. This freaking sucks. The Niners are completely falling apart. It looks like at this point, I need to find another quarterback not named Brock Purdy. Deebo Samuel likely to miss a couple of weeks from Kyle Shanahan. Oh my gosh. So now, especially as we're going to review all these teams during the live stream, we need to be going through and we need to update the rankings for the league analyzer. But Deebo Samuel likely to miss a couple weeks here. Absolutely brutal. I'm sorry, Better Call Hall. We'll go right back to this team. But this is breaking news that we have. And I guess it is Ayuk season. You have to have Ayuk over Deebo at this point. Going over to update our ranks right now. And honestly, we're going to update our ranks at tight end as well. George Kittle jumps Pitts. George Kittle jumps Kincaid. George Kittle is tight end 5. And going over to receiver, if Deebo misses a couple weeks, you have to have him behind Harrison, Rice, Ayuk, Adams, Neighbors, the very minimum. Obviously, I'm going to move him behind London Smith for now. We'll see what London ends up doing. But I think Deebo Samuel has to move down to at least being a mid-wide receiver too. Now, of course, I'll continuously update these as we get more information regarding it. But yeah, I think the initial reaction is, and honestly, I'm going to move Ayuk over Rice. I'm going to do it. I know people hate it, but I think the initial reaction is Ayuk moves up slightly. I will have Brandon Ayuk wide receiver 10 in our rest of season rankings. Obviously, Deebo falls. I'm going to move Deebo Samuel down to wide receiver 16. Danny says Rice should be top 10. I had him top 10 before. Right? I don't know if I can move Rice ahead of Ayuk, Harrison, or Wilson just yet. But yeah, we'll move Deebo down to 16, Ayuk up to 10. Kittle will go up to 5 as well. I think this is good for George Kittle. Jordan Mason maybe gets a few more dump offs. Maybe they rush back CMC. But the thing is, at the same time, if you're looking at like this Niners team, this is a team that could fall behind. Like right now, let's pull up the standings in this division. NFC West. The Niners are 1-1. Their next few games, they're going up against the Rams, then Pats, then Cardinals, then Seahawks. Not that bad. They don't play the Chiefs until the 20th. That's when they have a harder stretch of games. October 20th, Chiefs. 27th, Cowboys. 10th, Bucks. November 17th, Seahawks. November 24th, Packers. December 1st, Bills. So the schedule doesn't get hard until really the second half of the year. So maybe we don't have to worry about like the Niners being out of it. But the Niners are just getting absolutely crushed right now with injuries. RIP. But let's get back over to Better Call Hall's question. And I will point out real quick, please, ladies and gentlemen, looks like only one of every 15 of y'all have gone down there and hit that like button. If you have not done so already, please drop a like on this live stream. I've live streamed every single day for over 100 days in a row and going to live stream every single day until the season starts. But anyway, this is Better Call Hall. As we were saying previously, feeling good about their squad, except maybe at receiver, and they're willing to move anybody besides Breece Hall. It's a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, single flex format. So if you were looking at this format, the depth just simply is not going to matter here. Really what we are incentivized for is to have that elite quarterback, have the elite tight ends, have the top end running backs as well. When you can only start 3 receivers and it's a 10-team league where wide receiver is going to be easy to come by off the waiver wire, we're really going to be chilling at the position. But anyway, looking at quarterback, we have A-Rich. A-Rich, given the rushing upside, still a play in fantasy football every week, regardless of if he is a good or bad real-life QB. Baker Mayfield, I am fine rostering Baker as the backup to A-Rich here, just in case things get very, very ugly when we look over there in Indianapolis. Going over to what we have at running back, we have Breece Hall, Zach Moss, Brian Robinson, and Isaiah Pacheco. So obviously the Pacheco injury is really dragging this team down here. You can see that Pacheco has moved down to 85 overall in our ranks based off the injury. So at running back 2, we're probably starting Zach Moss for the time being, or honestly, maybe Brian Robinson, depending on the matchup. I will say, if you look at the underlying usage for the running backs in Cincinnati, was very encouraging for Zach Moss this past week, even though he didn't really look good every time he touched the ball. He just played almost 90% of the snaps here for the Bengals, which was ridiculous. I think going over to receiver, we're in a great spot. We have Harrison, we have Ayuk, we have DJ Moore. Brandon Ayuk just gets that actual bump in our rankings, where if we were to refresh this page, you'll see that 20th overall rank go even higher. And then going over to tight end, we have the elite tight end with Trey McBride. So overall, looking at this team, I think you're in a really good situation outside of the injuries impacting this squad. You're dealing with the Tua injury hurting Jalen Waddle. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco himself gets injured. So we take a hit with our wide receiver depth while at the same time take a hit at our RB2 slot. Couple different things that you can do to go about this. One, I would say, if you could potentially take Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson and make a 2-for-1 deal to go upgrade running back, I would love to do that. The reality of the situation is at the moment, however, that McLaurin doesn't really have any trade value. You're probably not going to be able to make a trade like that. So if you were looking to solve the running back situation with the Pacheco injury in a different way, maybe instead you go ahead and you cut Baker Mayfield and pick up another running back off the waiver wire and only roster Anthony Richardson. But I don't think you can really trade Ayuk. I don't think you can trade DJ Moore. I think you're going to have to wait until you get Jalen Waddle back into this offense to move one of those appealing receivers. So really the only trade that makes sense is if you can take advantage of one of your league mates and they don't understand that Terry McLaurin doesn't really have any value in a league where you only start 2 receivers and 1 flex in a 10-team format. And then at that point, we would want to go McLaurin and Moss or McLaurin and Robinson to get an upgrade, but I'm probably a little bit higher on Moss than your league mates are. But thank you again. Really do appreciate you. I think you have a great team. Obviously, it's the number 1 squad with the league analyzer here. And I really hope I was able to help you out. And yeah, thank you so much for everything. Now let's go ahead and let's actually get some free questions going in the live chat for everybody here. I know we have a bunch of news. Cryptic says we have Deebo news. Yes, sir. We already talked about this. We already moved Deebo Samuel down our rankings, Kittle up, and Ayuk up as well. Jonathan says, do not move Chase. Yeah, I mean, I have Chase in the flock league. He's my wide receiver 1. I took him at pick 7. And I really haven't moved him in our rankings at all. Just because I think the expectation for him to come out and crush immediately when he wasn't at training camp, when the Bengals offense has started very slow, I think maybe it's a little bit unfair to assume that we were going to get that from Jamar. OQ says, do you think Amari Cooper for Tank Dell was a good trade? I have Tank Dell ranked ahead of Amari in my rest of season rankings. I just think that if you look at this Browns offense, like let's pull up what Amari Cooper has done. What has Amari actually done this year? Whether it's his fault or not. Well, let's look at the Browns. How many players do you think currently have more receiving yards in Cleveland than Amari Cooper does? Take a guess. How many players do you think have more receiving yards in Cleveland over Amari Cooper? Coda asking Juwan Jennings off the waiver wire. Juwan Jennings could be an interesting pickup. Sticky Ricky Pearsall actually maybe as well. Trev thinks 3. The Brown Mama says 3. Stream Macau says 4. Danny says 5. Jonathan says maybe 2. 5. So here is what you actually have in terms of the leading receivers in Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy at 1. Elijah Moore at 2. David Njoku at 3. Jordan Atkins at 4. Pierre Strong at 5. Amari Cooper tied with David Bell at 6. With Amari Cooper playing an additional game. Amari Cooper is currently tied for the 6th most receiving yards in Cleveland this year. Amari Cooper is not startable in fantasy. Obviously, the volume's there. I don't want to overreact to just a 2-game sample, but this is one of the least efficient passing offenses in the NFL. They paid Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy has had 14 targets. Elijah Moore's had 14 targets. While Amari's leading the team in targets, it's 14, 14, 17. It is a little bit of a wide receiver trio and one of the worst offenses in the league. So yeah, I don't really have much interest in Amari Cooper in this spot. Quinn says, what do I do with Kelsey? Obviously, if you could sell for McBride, you do it in a heartbeat, but I doubt you can. Let's move this over. Danny says, shameless flex that I drafted a good amount of round 18 Deonta Foreman. Not a shameless flex at all that I drafted a ton of round 18 Roshan Johnson. Come for your boy. Ooh, Roshan standing on the sideline looking pretty. In my underdog drafts where you get points per eye candy looks, we're crushing with Roshan Johnson. Elite Henry says, if I bought a personal podcast on flockfantasy.com, where would I find it? You would see it in the My Reviews section of the site. So what you're going to get is, if you have that personal team review through flockfantasy.com, if you purchase it through me, you'll see it on the live stream. You'll get a clip of that live stream sent to you through the site as well. And you also may get a little PDF fill out surprise sent to you too. Okay. Now let's move this over. Yes, points per punch taken. We're crushing with Roshan. We're crushing. Danny, if you're here, I know you're a mod. Do you mind hiding that person from the live stream? Okay, let's move this over and let's actually break down some more teams real quick. And I do want to remind you, of course, over on flockfantasy.com, you can purchase a trade question, start sit question, a full-blown roster review. But I will remind you as well that definitely the cheapest way to get a roster review is actually taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, or if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you are actually going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you are going to be getting a free Jalen Hurts special pick for tonight's game, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, a free team review on the live stream. And Underdog actually has a ton of promos for everybody this week. For everybody this week, they are dropping another CeeDee Lamb free pick, more than less than half a total yard as well. Danny, much love, my guy. Really do appreciate you. Really do appreciate you. And you can find that link in the description, and you can find that link in the live chat as well. But let's move over to our next trade question. This one coming out from Michael Pass says, got sent this and accepted as I have Puka, Brown, and Waddle. What are your thoughts? I will miss J.K. Dobbins. So obviously, now that Deebo's hurt, Brandon Ayuk is even more appealing. But even if Deebo Samuel is fully healthy, Brandon Ayuk is by far and away the best piece here. I'd rather have Javonte over Bucky Irving. Javonte looks like he is the man in Denver. Now, the issue is it's the least valuable backfield in the entire league. But yes, we're going to go ahead. We will take Ayuk and Javonte. And I feel like I have just so many boogers on my nose right now. God. Okay, let's go ahead and check this out for Almond Joy. Says, really like the team, but we started out 0-2, scored the second most points in the league this week, and still lost since we played against the most. My guy, we have Danny in the live chat here. He can vouch for you. I'm about to be 2-0 in the Flock League, and the reason for this is, am I scoring the most points? No. It's because I'm getting into my opponent's heads. It's because I'm playing the best defense, and they're scoring the least amount of points. Scoring points in fantasy football is only half the game, all right? What you need to do is you need to go work on your mental game, get your team in the lab, start cooking up the right scheme, get in your opponent's head, and start playing some good defense. But best waiver wire pickups right now include Javonte, Braylon Allen, Justice Hill, Carson Steele. Javonte is by far and away the best option here. Guarantee you we're picking up Javonte. I'd go Javonte 1, then Carson Steele 2. My league is very old head filled. Unfortunately, hard to make trades happen. Some of teams are open to training. Well, let's go ahead and let's dive into this. Super happy that I figured out that we can actually zoom in on the screenshots with flockfantasy.com here. And yeah, that's one thing. If y'all are on the site and you're having an issue linking your team, you can always submit screenshots for a team review if you want it as well. Now, I will say, definitely recommend linking your team, and you should be able to link your team with ESPN, Yahoo, and Sleeper. And if you're having any issues with the instructions of that, you can send it in the site issue section of the Discord, and one of the developers will help you out. But anyway, checking this league out, this is a league where you start 2 receivers and 1 flex spot. So wide receiver depth, not necessarily going to matter too much here. Quarterback, we are currently sitting with Kyler Murray. Going down to the bench in terms of what we have at quarterback, we're not really sitting with anything, which I'm completely fine with, right? When we have Kyler, especially what we saw this past week, is you're able to start him pretty much every single week, regardless of matchup, right? You have crazy ceiling as a rusher and also, from what we saw this past week, as a thrower. Now, going over to what we have at running back, this is an awkward spot. Jerome Ford falls off. Jerome Ford at this point looks like he is probably not startable if Deonta Foreman is taking over and turning this into a running back by committee. The reality of the situation is, if it's a running back by committee in Cleveland and one of the worst offenses in the league, I'm probably not excited to start any running back in this Cleveland Browns backfield. Ford's really only viable if he's the only guy that's there. Going down to the bench, you have Zach Moss, you have Jaleel McLaughlin, you have Jalen Wright. I think Zach Moss actually stepping into a very nice role in Cincinnati where he's seeing 90% of this team's backfield effectively, probably closer to 80%, but tomato. He is the 3-down back for the Bengals. I think when this Bengals offense kind of gets their crap together, we'll see more efficient play from Zach Moss. And I think Zach Moss will be someone I'm actually starting over Jerome Ford this week. Now, going over to wide receiver, this is where we have the anchors, and I think the team's going to be so damn good for this reason. We have St. Brown, we have Garrett Wilson, we have Nico Collins. These are 3 wide receivers that are in our lineup every single week, regardless of the matchup. Regardless. And real quick, I'm sorry. I'm actually going to make another moderator in the live chat real quick. A-Rod, my guy, it's your lucky time. Lucky day. A-Rod, you will be a moderator. This is the first moderator we've made in the live chat in maybe like a year or 2 years. Pretty much anybody that you see as a moderator in the chat has been a moderator since probably like 2022. But A-Rod, we got you set up now. And if you see any like the streaming bots, please ban them if you can. Like the saying like, oh, NFL streaming here at this scam website. We'd love to ban it. Okay. But yeah, Colin's been out here for a while. Appreciate you taking care of it, my guy. But anyway, going ahead and looking at this out receiver, we have the anchors at the very top. So when we have St. Brown, Wilson, and Nico Collins there as our two receivers and our flex, we don't necessarily need to worry about the depth that we have at wide receiver down there at the bottom end of this team. We have Kirk, I mean, at this point, has 29 receiving yards on the season. Had a -1 receiving yards this last week in a game that had no Evan Ingram. So at this point, I don't necessarily know if you can trust Christian Kirk at all. I'm not cutting him just yet. I moved him down. I think he's outside the top 100 players in our rankings rest of season. Tyler Lockett, however, is somebody that I'm actually fine cutting because with Lockett, now that you have the full-blown Jackson Smith-Njigba breakout, the full-blown JSN emergence, I don't see how Lockett has a path to really any upside whatsoever in this offense. So I would be completely fine going ahead, cutting Tyler Lockett, picking up another player off the waiver wire. I'd most likely be picking up Javonte Williams in that instance because running back's what we need help with, right? Wide receiver, we're so damn strong at the top. And in this lineup setting, you don't really need any wide receiver depth. Going over rostering two defenses, I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, with that being said, the Bears defense looks really good. Let me check out the schedule that we have for these teams going into the future. So the Chargers, I know we wanted to start them going up against Bryce Young this past week. The Chargers are actually about to get the Steelers, so I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to start them there. Whereas if we're looking at the Bears are about to get the Colts. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to start them there. Either the Bears are about to have a stretch of games against the Colts, the Rams with no Puka and no Kupp, then the Panthers, then the Jags, then the Commanders. Yeah, so the Bears are about to have a great day. Stretch as the defense. I wouldn't mind if you wanted to cut Los Angeles and just roll with Chicago. And then pick up another running back off the waiver wire. So if your league mates aren't making trades, completely fine. I just think that we try to optimize with as many running backs as we can down on the bench. That way we can hopefully find that long-term fill-in at RB2 that we really like. Try to find the next player like Jordan Mason. And going back and looking at what you sent in terms of the best available options on the waiver wire, you were saying the best options on waiver are Javonte, Braylon Allen, Justice Hill, Carson Steele, Quentin Johnston. What I would do is I would cut the Bears defense, cut Tyler Lockett, and prioritize Javonte number 1, Carson Steele number 2, and then Braylon Allen number 3, and then honestly Quentin Johnston number 4 in the order of those waiver wires. But much love, my friend. Really hope that I was able to help you out. Now let's move this over to our next question. This is from Jazzy Bath. This is a 10-team start 7, so the depth doesn't really matter. It's all about getting the best player in the deal. And here, the best player in the deal by a country mile is Jamar Chase. You go Jamar Chase here, you don't think about it. I would rather have Chase straight up over Ramondre Stevenson and Brian Thomas. Please go with the Chase side, please. Now, Aston Marvin, love the team name, coming through and says, currently 0-2. This is an 8-team league. 4 of the teams make the playoffs. Feel like the team is solid despite the slow start, but our forfeit for last is unacceptable. Been watching for years. Much love, my friend. And if this is a situation in which we are 0-2, obviously you're starting to panic about these injured guys that aren't giving you anything right now. It's understandable for you to look at somebody like Puka Nacua and go, you know what? Maybe I want this guy off my squad. But the reality is, actually, I don't know. Can you all spam the chat? Where would you rather go with this? Would you rather have Puka and Brian Thomas? Or would you rather have JSN and Zay Flowers? This is exactly where I'm at. Danny says 8-team league, you need to hold. If this was a 12-team format, like start 2 flex spots, like if this was the Flock League, I completely understand an 0-2 team moving on from Puka and getting this upgrade here with 2 usable players. But in an 8-team league, I don't know. Are you starting JSN? Are you starting Zay Flowers? Or are these just guys going to your bench anyway? But everybody in the chat says JSN and Zay Flowers. So maybe you are getting enough value. But my thought process is, in an 8-team league, are you starting the guys? And yeah, Danny says 100% can do it in a 10, 12, not in an 8. Literally just look at your roster and go, if I trade for Zay Flowers, is he making my lineup this week? And if he's making your lineup this week, then sure, you can go ahead and go for it. I think JSN and Brian Thomas are kind of similar rest of season. So I almost view it in a way you're trading Puka Nacua for Zay Flowers. Now, KB2 coming out saying, what's up, Mason? Cooked up this trade earlier today and wanted to get your thoughts. Figured Wilson was a nice buy low candidate. I 100% agree. I think Wilson is a phenomenal buy low candidate. I break this down where I'd way rather have Jahmyr Gibbs over CMC, and I'd way rather have Garrett Wilson over Chris Olave. So I don't think you're stressing about this at all, my friend. To be honest with you, if the other owner rejects this, I would be willing to go out there and I'd be willing to add in another piece. I would add in a depth receiver with upside like Brian Thomas Jr. to get the job done here. So obviously offer them the initial, but I would even be willing to come up with that a bit. Okay. Now let's move this over. Next question is coming out from It's Chavez. Says, hey Mason, got offered my trade. Team is pretty low on wide receivers. So looking at this deal, I think it's very easy, to be honest with you. I think we are going to go ahead. We are going to take Malik Neighbors and Keon Coleman. Malik Neighbors is by far and away the best piece in this trade. And I was somebody that I liked Malik Neighbors in like ESPN and Yahoo drafts because he was very reasonably priced. But I didn't really draft Malik Neighbors when it comes to underdog drafts where he was going at the end of the second round, primarily because this offense was just going to be so bad. If you look at the historical data, wide receivers in bad offenses don't produce. Okay, don't draft Deontay, don't draft Sutton, don't draft McLaurin, don't draft Malik Neighbors in round 2. But at this point, to look at what Malik Neighbors is doing, like it's hard to, he had 18 targets out of 25 or 28 pass attempts for Daniel Jones. I think you have to go Malik Neighbors here. Like, I think Malik Neighbors is by far and away the best deal, even though Tank Dell, I do expect to have better games going into the future. Now, Max Bartlett coming out with our next question says, I have McBride tight end 1, Pacheco, Mixon, Mason starting at running back. Wide receiver, we have St. Brown, Collins, London starting. So yeah, you wouldn't start Pittman here. You wouldn't start Eckler here. I think you need more for Dalton Kincaid. I don't see how Pittman or Eckler move the needle for pretty much any team. I know it's a 12-team start 8 format, so it's a little bit deeper. But I think I'd still try to squeeze out a little more value for Kincaid. If you look at the underlying usage for Kincaid, I'm not worried about him. I think he's going to be great going into the future. Now, Bala Boy coming out with our next team. Very interesting team name. We got Run A-Chan on her. But I was offered Barkley and Ridley for Josh Jacobs, Jaden Reed, Tank Dell, and Rome. So Jacobs to Barkley, upgrade. Reed to Ridley, upgrade. We're paying Dell and Rome to get the deal done. I think you have to do this. If you were looking at what you have here between, in this format, this is a 10-team league where you start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. With this being a league where you start 2 receivers and 1 flex, depth doesn't matter at the wide receiver position. I would love to sell that wide receiver depth to go ahead and upgrade to get the stud Saquon Barkley. I almost think it's kind of a no-brainer move, especially as you pull up this team, and this team is star-studded here. Now, obviously, quarterback, we are not in a good situation. We have Baker Mayfield and Caleb Williams. Am I excited about either one of these quarterbacks going into the future? Probably not. Caleb Williams, I'll give it away to Danny here. If Danny wants to hang out in the live stream, he'll get a little sneak peek of what I'm planning on in the waiver wire this week in the Flock League. I'm dropping Caleb Williams. I don't see how Caleb hits my starting lineup anytime soon. This offensive coordinator in Chicago looks disgusting. So I'm going ahead. I'm moving on from Caleb. I bet you can pick up another quarterback off the waiver wire that maybe is a little bit of a better option here in Chicago. Maybe it's a little too early to give up on the rookie QB, but he's not running the ball nearly as much as you'd like to see. There were like 7 hits he took yesterday when I went, oh, he's not getting up. He's done. RIP. Somehow he continued to play the game, but regardless, I would love to get an improvement at quarterback if we can. Going over to running back, we have Achane, we have Jacobs. Both guys are studs. Jones, Singletary, kind of quality pieces, but obviously you just have cap ceilings given the respective offenses that they are in. So yeah, if you were able to pivot up from Jacobs over to Saquon Barkley, I think it's a no-brainer. As we go over and look at wide receiver, we have Jefferson, Harrison, so we have 2 wide receiver ones we can consistently play. Devonta Smith here at wide receiver 3 slides into that flex. Tank Dell, Jaden Reed, Roma Dunze are all bench assets for us. So for us to essentially trade those 3 bench assets and get back another bench asset in Calvin Ridley, but upgrade from Jacobs to Barkley in this league in particular, I think that does make a ton of sense for you. Obviously, this is a phenomenal wide receiver room, but just the depth doesn't necessarily matter too much in a 10-team league where you want to start 2 wide receivers and a flex. Going over to tight ends, you have Kincaid, you have Dallas Goedert. If you are looking at the tight end position here, I think it's a situation in which you're probably not needing to roster Goddard. I'm fine with you doing it, especially with the A.J. Brown injury. But say Goddard were to go off tonight, I wouldn't fault you at all for going ahead and packaging Dallas Goedert with another piece to get an upgrade in the lineup. If you weren't to sell your wide receiver depth to go get the anchor RB in Saquon Barkley, what I'd want to do instead is I'd want to sell a wide receiver depth piece with a quarterback like Baker Mayfield to go get a stud QB. Because specifically in a league where you only start 2 receivers and 1 flex, quarterback's going to make up a crazy high percentage of our starting lineup. And I don't really want to be too excited about going through and starting Baker Mayfield and Caleb Williams. But thank you again, my friend. I really do appreciate you and hope that we were able to help you out. Now, this next team review we're going to be doing is for Crocodile Sharks, a much more PG team name in this league. Oh, I like it. I like it. But this is, yet again, another one of these leagues where wide receiver depth just simply doesn't matter. I mean, it's a 10-team format, start 2 receivers and 1 flex. Every 2-for-1 deal you make is advantageous in that you can pick up a decent player off waivers in a shallow format like this. Really, we are just focused in on trying to get the best studs that we possibly can into our starting lineup. Going over to quarterback, I actually think that Mahomes is going to be in a much better situation going into the future. If you are looking at Patrick Mahomes, this is a quarterback that now sees no Pacheco in his offense. So you're presumably expecting additional dropbacks. You're expecting the passing volume to go up here in Kansas City. So I'm excited with Mahomes. I'm going over to running back. We have Achane. And yes, that Achane anchor RB, top 12 asset in fantasy football at this point. I think it's hard to get away from that, especially with the receiving usage that he currently has in Miami. I mean, he was the 3rd leading receiver in Miami week 1. He is the number 1 leading receiver in week 2. Going down to what we're doing at running back 2. Obviously, we're not excited about any of these players. What we are currently doing is we are attacking the position with quantity over quality, which I do like because when you hit on one of those guys, like Zach Charbonnet and the starter goes down in front, he's an automatic start. When you hit on Jordan Mason and the starter goes down in front, he's an automatic start. And then all of a sudden, when we have the elite receivers, when we have the top end quarterback, when we have the top end tight end, we get a free running back, then all of a sudden you have a monstrous team. The issue is Justice Hill looks like nothing. Alexander Madison looks like nothing. I'd cut Alexander Madison at this point. Jaleel McLaughlin looks like he's scaling back and Javante's taking back that job. Zamir White looks like he's nothing. Raheem Mostert may look like he's nothing as well. So all the running backs that we had scaled back in this offense. So I am a little bit concerned about what you have here I love the construction in just terms of the names that we are looking at. What I would definitely do is I would move on from Alexander Madison, look to pick up another running back off the waiver wire. I need to go ahead and I need to update my rankings again because looking at this, I realized I would rather have Justice Hill over Madison. So we need to move Madison even further. I'm going to move Madison behind Marshawn Lloyd and Justice Hill, because now this does look to be a 3-man split backfield. I need to move Cam Akers up as well. So do we have Akers in the pool already? We do. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Akers was someone I didn't really care about the ranking of previously, but now I think Akers probably has to jump up here to be ahead of Estime, ahead of Miller, ahead of Pierce, ahead of Roschon, ahead of Idell. I think Akers probably jumps up to being right around here. Also, we probably need to move Gurindo up into that same range as Tracy. Were there any other running backs that look like they need to be moved? Ooh, Kareem Hunt visiting the Chiefs will need to be moved up as well. We'll put him right here behind Gurindo for the time being. Obviously, we may get some more information regarding this soon. Deonta Foreman needs to be moved up dramatically as well. I think I'd rather have Foreman over Alexander Madison at this point. We'll move up Foreman to RB60. Well, let's publish these. Okay. But anyway, going back over here, I think that we would cut Alexander Madison, cycle through, see if you can pick up somebody like Carson Steele off the waiver wire. If not, maybe you pick up somebody like Kareem Hunt, but just a running back that ends up taking over, having a shot to take over Pacheco's workload. Going over to wide receiver, we're definitely chilling here when we have the top end assets of St. Brown, Nico, Harrison. These are our 2 receivers and our flex spot every single week, regardless of matchup. The depth here at wide receiver with Sutton and Lockett isn't super exciting. I would be fine moving on from Lockett and going instead, picking up a player like Quentin Johnston. Tight end, I am not worried about Kincaid whatsoever. I think you're going to be chilling. So honestly, I think this team, there are no trades to make, right? Because the thing is, we're already built around the 3 anchor receivers. I think quarterback, tight end is going to be better going into the future. We're already building out our team around quantity at running back, hoping that we can hit on one of these running back 2s. So really the only job that this team needs to have right now is just continuing to churn the bottom end of this overall running back room and maybe our wide receiver here with Lockett to pick up high upside players off waivers, because if we can find the next if we can find the next Zach Charbonnet, if we can find the next Jordan Mason, then at that point, obviously, we are in a very, very comfortable spot because we'll essentially get that free RB2. Okay, but thank you again, my friend. Really do appreciate you and hope that I was able to help you out. But let's move this over to our next team. This is going to be a trade question coming out from Coda. This is James Conner, DK Metcalf versus Pittman and Kyron Williams. I know Metcalf blows up. I still am viewing Metcalf as a mid to low end wide receiver 2, though. James Conner, I absolutely love my RB1 in the flock league at the moment. He is winning me games straight up. But at the same time, I am a little bit concerned about Trey Benson in the long term. So I'm going to go ahead. I will take Kyron Williams and Michael Pittman Jr. here. But El Jefe coming out with our next question. This is going to be Devonta Smith versus Brian Robinson and JSN. We lost Pacheco. We need a little more depth here. I would rather go to the waiver wire and try to figure it out. I don't necessarily know if Brian Robinson Jr. is really going to be moving the needle for us. Eckler is still split in the backfield. Eckler still does have a massive receiving role. It doesn't look to be a great offense. With the A.J. Brown injury, I'd probably rather just have Smith, my friend. Now, Rob Gug coming out saying, 10-team PBR league. We start 3 receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex. Getting Breece and pairing with Saquon feels fantastic. So Jefferson to Breece, I would rather have Breece Hall even in the start 3 receiver league. Ramondre versus Evans, I would rather have Evans. Montgomery versus Keon, I'd rather have Montgomery. But overall, yeah, I think you're getting the best asset here with Breece Hall. I think the Jets offense will actually be better going into the future. I'm completely fine going on this side of it. But let me pull up the live chat real quick and answer a few of the free questions that we have. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Be happy to get to them. Okay. It's Easy says, is getting a team review from you free or does it cost? So if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog and make a $10 deposit, you'll get a free team review from me through the site. You need to make sure that your Underdog email address and your site email address, you need to make sure that they match. If you purchase an annual Mother Flocker subscription on the site, you'll be getting a free team review from me in the live stream on top of the site access to everything when you use code FLOCK. But if you are not a site member and you do not use code FLOCK on Underdog, then at that point, it does cost to get a team review. Let's move this over. Trev the Goat says, do I trade Ramondre for CMC? Yes, I would. Country Connected says you're going to do another meetup. 100%. Will you do meetups every single year? Of course we'll do another meetup. Snowy says, is Jalen Wright still worth the roster spot? Depends on the Mostert status. The thing is, if Raheem Mostert comes back and then Jalen Wright goes immediately to being the RB3 in this offense yet again, when Achane just looks like an absolute bona fide stud, I don't know how excited you can be. Let's move this over. Doc USA says, I have a Kamara. Should I trade him for A.J. Brown and Pollard? Yes, I would. I'd rather have A.J. Brown and Pollard over Kamara. Kamara, I had to move up my rankings dramatically. It's embarrassing. I had Kamara ranked as an RB2. I would love to know if Danny's still in here. Danny, I would love your opinion on this, my guy. Obviously, I'll see your rankings. I'm assuming today or tomorrow, whenever they get done. No big deal. But am I crazy to now move Kamara up to RB7? Danny moving up to RB6. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not crazy to... I guess I'm not crazy to move him up to RB7. It's embarrassing that I had him as an RB2 coming into the season. Even in a full PBR format, I had him as an RB2, which at this point looks like a horrible call. But real quick, let me get the girl in here. Come on, baby. I know. I'm sorry. She's been out there scratching on the door trying to get in, but I was afraid she needed to go outside, and I was having to get someone to take her first. I know. You want to say hi to everybody? You haven't said hi to everybody in a while. Come here, baby. Come here. You're not going under that desk. You're too big. Come here. You want to say hi to everybody? Say what's up, people. Say what's up. We need Devonta Smith to outscore Dallas Goedert by 2.5 points today. That's what we need to win our matchup, huh? That's what we need. I know. Go to your bed, baby. Go to your bed. Not under the desk. No, not under the desk. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's move this back over. Jared says favorite underdog picks for tonight. Let's go ahead and let's actually take advantage of some of the promos that we have on Underdog right now. I don't have the free Jalen Hurts pick because obviously I've been on Underdog for years and years and years. But if y'all were interested, y'all can get a free Jalen Hurts pick on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK with the link in the live chat and the link in the description. Using promo code FLOCK, you're going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus, a Jalen Hurts special pick, more than less than half a total yard, and Underdog, and you'll get a free team review on one of these live streams as well. And actually, they are also dropping that free CeeDee Lamb pick tomorrow as well. So then that's going to be site-wide. But let's move this over. I want to be using the 20% profit boost tokens that we have. Looking at this, I actually don't mind to go fewer than 101.5 total yards for Saquon Barkley. Feels like both these running back projections are a little bit rich. What I try to do with every pick'em slip that I make is I try to tell a little bit of a story and say like, oh, maybe this game is a little lower scoring than people are expecting. And what I am very much rooting for here is a dud Dallas Goedert game. What I need to win in the Flock League is I need Dallas Goedert to be outscored by Devonta Smith by 2.5 points. So that's what we are really hoping for. We will go ahead and we will put 15 on this, and it will be to win 105 because we are using the profit boost token. Like I said, I am by no means a pick'em expert, but I am profitable on Underdog so far this year. I need to do the math to figure out the exact number for y'all again, just because I have been taking advantage of the promos that they have been offering. But let's move it back over and let's get some more questions going on the site. And of course, like I said, you can purchase that starts a question. You can purchase a trade question all through flockfantasy.com. If you are interested in that, just go ahead and hit this little expert advice button in the top right corner, the little comment looking thing. And yeah, but like I said, it's definitely cheaper to do the team review through the Underdog promo that we have. Okay. Through the Underdog promo, it's $10 for a team review if you click that link in the description. Okay. Now moving this over, we have Jerome Ford, Chris Olave versus Jahmyr Gibbs. This is Jahmyr Gibbs by a mile. If you look at Jerome Ford, he's now a committee back in this offense with Deonta Foreman. not interested. This is a 16-team league here. So since this is a 16-team league, we have Barkley and Gibbs in the lineup. Today, I got an offer from the Breece Hall owner and wanted to know what you suggest. For everybody watching this, if you could make this deal for Breece Hall and your 10-team league and your 12-team league, it would be an absolute no-brainer. You would go get Breece Hall and you would run away laughing, and honestly, your league mates would probably be pissed and try to veto. However, in a 16-team league, depth is so much harder to come by. Picking up an additional starter and getting somebody that's going to have volume is very valuable. With all that being said, I don't give a damn. Let's go ahead and let's get Breece Hall and let's have the best team in this league, my guy. Now, our next one, I traded Puka for this. Did I get robbed? Is from E-Dog. He trades Puka for Jalen Hurts and Rashad White. I'd way rather have Jalen Hurts and Rashad White. I'd rather have Hurts over Puka straight up with Puka on the IR. Hellboy Jordan says, I'm struggling in this league with CMC and Puka on the IR. Also dealing with other minor injuries. We had a terrible week 2. So essentially, we are making a move to get us points in this lineup immediately. We're upgrading from CMC to Justin Jefferson. We are downgrading from Lamar to Burrow and a slight downgrade from Jaden Reed to Brian Robinson. But obviously, if this team's falling apart with injuries, Jaden Reed's not super exciting in the short term either based off the Jordan Love injury. So what I probably do here is I probably actually just go ahead. I take Justin Jefferson, the best piece. These are 3 startable players. I think Burrow will be a little bit better going into the future. At least I'm hoping he will be. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's get Jefferson in. Now, Love Thy Neighbors coming out with this team review. Says, first year Dynasty and sent the team in 2 weeks ago. Took your advice and traded Walker and stacked more picks. Unfortunately, I'm going into this week going against my soft take. I have a claim in for Carr off the waiver wire. I should win. Not sure if I should still trade Breece, like you said before. League Analyzer didn't work on the stream last time. Okay, well, it's working now, so whatever we figured out. I am sorry if the League Analyzer didn't work on the stream the last time we looked at your squad, my friend. We just had that massive update on on flockfantasy.com last week, so there were just a minor list of bugs that the developers had to deal with, but clearly a lot of that stuff is beyond us. But let's move this over. So it looks like this is ranked number 5 in this league. So you're saying that we are more so going for a soft tank this year and looking to pivot into 2025. We have our first round pick in 2025. We have another owner's first round pick in 2025 as well. It's a dynasty league for anybody watching. You go ahead and look at this team. Quarterback, we are in a very, very tough spot. Caleb Williams does not look startable this season. I think Caleb does have a lot of long-term upside, but still at the same time, I don't necessarily know if we're super excited about Caleb Williams right at this point. Like, there's no way in hell I think you're winning your dynasty league if Caleb's our only quarterback with the Tua injury. Going over to running back, I love the long-term upside of Brooks. I love the long-term upside of Benson. I think these guys in 2025 could be significant pieces. But obviously this year, they're pretty much giving you nothing. We have Breece, so we have the anchor RB. Like, and whenever I say throw Breece on the trade block, what I'm saying is if you could go ahead and potentially move Breece Hall in Dynasty on a rebuilding squad and in return get back not only 2025 picks, but also an additional promising asset that we like for the long term here. Like, if you can sell Breece Hall and get back a future first, Brock Bowers, and then maybe a year 2 receiver that you're in on like Tank Dell, I think that would be the package if we could pivot to assets that could actually increase in value from this offseason to next. Because do you think Breece Hall could be worth more in Dynasty this offseason than he is today? I don't necessarily think so. And if you were to get Hall off your team, at the same time, we have a realistic shot to go ahead and actually to maybe get an early 2025 pick. It seems too good to do that right now. I would also love to see if we can sell Zach Moss and go ahead and get a second and a third rounder in 2025. Now, the issue is Moss, the points haven't been there, but the underlying usage is maybe we're just going to need a spike week from him. But yeah, you have the Waddle knock because of the Tua injury. Rome doesn't look viable because how bad Caleb is right now. Obviously, Neighbors crushing it, but all four of these receivers can be worth more next offseason than they are right this second. You have the David Njoku injury, K. Dotton giving you nothing. I still think it makes the most sense, and you have the assets to make a juggernaut team in 2025 into the future. So if you could potentially move off of Kirk, move off of Moss, it's not selling Breece just for picks, but also selling Breece for those assets that we are very confident could be top end pieces moving forward for us. Somebody like Brock Bowers, I would. And then obviously we are waiting for him to come back due to his injury, but I think David Njoku would also be somebody that we are looking to move in that instance. But yeah, one thing I will kind of warn against, I know we are looking like we're loading up on future third round picks. And a 10-team league like this, like third-round picks really aren't going to make a difference with how shallow this format is. So definitely we're going to be chasing the first-rounders where we can get them. Don't have to sell Breece, of course, but I do think you are maybe incentivized to. Like, let's go ahead and let's check out some of these squads. Like, with this team, for instance, if you could sell Breece Hall and in return get their 2025 first, their 2026 first, and an asset like Chris Olave, I think that's a no-brainer. It could help them contend this year. It could help us for the long term. If this team, if we can go ahead and we can sell, I mean, they don't need running back. They're not going to do anything. This team maybe needs a running back too. If you can go ahead and you can sell them Breece Hall and get back their 2025 first, their 2026 first, or maybe just their 2025 first and Garrett Wilson. It'd be an absolute no-brainer for us. I don't know if they'd be willing to do it, but I think that's kind of along the lines of what we are talking about there with Breece in Dynasty on a rebuilding squad, my friend. But really do appreciate you. And yeah, I think this rebuild is going to go very strongly for you with the assets we have to build around. Now, next team review is going to be from Henry Huff. I think we've actually checked out a team for you before. Says, got offered Amon-Ra for Saquon. I'm getting Amon-Ra. What do you think in any other moves we should be looking at? So this is a 12-team start 8 format. So this is a league where you can start 2 wide receiver. I mean, you could start up to 4 receivers from week-to-week perspective. So I actually think that I would rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown specifically with these league settings. If it was a league where you could only start 3 wide receivers from week-to-week perspective, there I'm probably a little bit less excited about St. Brown. But looking at the squad, we have the elite quarterback with Josh Allen. When you have Allen, you don't need to be rostering Lawrence, especially with how Lawrence has looked. I'd kind of be fine to just go ahead and drop him at this point. Going over to running back, obviously, not only do we have the top end assets with Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor, but we also have quality depth where it looks like Zach Moss is the full-blown starting running back in Cincinnati. Charbonnet, it sounds like you're going to have a multi-week injury for Kenneth Walker. I don't know. You have Ty Chandler here as well as a running back that's an injury away. So I think you have the running back depth to potentially make that move and go get a player like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And specifically in a league where you can start 4 receivers from a week-to-week perspective and wide receivers pretty weak beyond our top 2 options, I think we would look to do it. We have Rice, we have Olave, we have Reed, we have Deontay. Maybe Deontay Johnson is a player that we can start now that Andy Dalton's under center. I don't necessarily know if we can say that's going to happen for sure, but it's at least a little bit better. At least there's something different. Like, we know you can't start Deontay Johnson with Bryce Young. We don't know about Dalton. Could be worse, could be better. Who knows? Actually, I don't know if it could be worse. DeAndre Hopkins is expanding his role in Tennessee, but still does not look like a startable player at this point. We have the tight end 1 in fantasy and Trey McBride. So what I would potentially look to do here is I actually do like trading Saquon, going and getting Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then the 4 receivers we can start every week will be St. Brown, Rice, Olave, then Reed when Love gets back. I mean, if not, we can go Taylor, Moss at running back, then Charbonnet for that flex and not start either Reed or Deontay. Cut Lawrence and pick up another running back off the waiver wire like Carson Steele once you make that Barkley for St. Brown trade. And I think you just have an incredibly high floor ceiling combo. But a couple of things. One, I do want to reiterate, the only reason we'd be willing to do it is because it's a full PPR format where you can start 4 receivers from week-to-week perspective. And at the same time, and the only way we do it as well is if we get confirmation that St. Brown is 100% fine, no injury, and he is good to go. But hope that we are able to help out there, my friend. But Joshua coming out with our next team review. This coming out from CDs. Says, I have a pending trade giving Pittman and Warren and receiving Ford and Waddle. Okay, so going from Pittman to Waddle, upgrade. Going from Warren to Ford, downgrade. Now that you have Deonta Foreman splitting the backfield in Cleveland, obviously Warren splitting the backfield with Najee, but in Pittsburgh, you don't have Nick Chubb waiting in the wings that will come back in later in the season. Looking at this league format, while it's only a 10-team league, you can actually start 9 players here. So it is a very deep format where you can start up to like 5 receivers from a week-to-week perspective. So I actually don't mind whatsoever building around the wide receiver position and just having a ton of depth here. Now, going over to Kyler, we have quarterback. Going over to quarterback, we have Kyler. That's funny. But yeah, with Kyler, especially with what we saw this past week, does look like he's somebody that we can start every single week, regardless of matchup. I don't necessarily think that you need to roster another QB here. Going over to running back, we have the anchor with Devon Achane, somebody that's going to be a very safe play week in and week out. We have Joe Mixon, who obviously we are seeing the volume there as well. We have Rashad White, who's getting cheap volume in Tampa. We have Jaylen Warren, who we have enough touches at running back. I mean, Jaylen Warren, obviously, premium handcuff back if Najee were to go down, but they both actually played 31 snaps in Pittsburgh this week. So he does look like he is just a straight up 50-50 backfield split with Najee at this point. Going over to wide receiver, we have Chase, Wilson, Pittman, Pickens, Ladd, Keon, Shaheed. So honestly, looking at this wide receiver room, you're in a very comfortable spot in which you have the top end assets that we can build around and the high upside depth pieces. Specifically because you can start so many wide receivers in this league format in particular, I don't think we go down the path of what I typically say. Y'all know typically it's a 10-team league. I go, oh, okay, yeah, let's take George Pickens. Let's package him with Dallas Goedert. Let's go get a tight end upgrade. Let's take Ladd McConkey. Let's go package him with Joe Mixon. Let's get an upgrade there at running back too. But if the league analyzer is correct here, my friend, and we can start 4 or 5 receivers from a week-to-week perspective, I actually want to be holding on to this wide receiver depth. I want to see these wide receivers grow down there in our flex spots. And also, if we can't start that many receivers, you're also going to have a lower percentage of your starting lineup output coming from the tight end position week in and week out. So I think Dallas Goedert is also less the tight end's less interesting in this format. Dallas Goedert, you're going to be able to be fine getting by with him. So overall, I actually really like what you're doing with this team. It's a league where you can start a ton of receivers. So we have the anchor RBs and we have the wide receiver depth throughout. It's a league where you can start a ton of receivers. So we're not rostering a backup quarterback or a backup tight end. And yeah, if we are reading this league format correctly, I wouldn't roster a backup tight end with Dallas Goedert, even though if it was a league where you only started 2 wide receiver and 1 flex, I would. So let me reiterate. If the league analyzer is pulling these details correctly and we can start 5 receivers from week to week perspective, we're chilling. You don't make a single move. I don't even make a waiver wire move with this team. This team's phenomenal for that format. If it's a standard league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, then you have work to do. Upgrade tight end, sell Pittman to get it done. Upgrade a running back slot, sell Pickens to get it done, and you don't want to be rostering this many running backs. Let's go over to our next question. This one coming out from John says, also have Mason, wouldn't let me add him for some reason. Thank you for letting me know that, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's check out this start sit for this week. Wide receiver, I'm still going to be playing Olave and Chase over Zay Flowers here. Flowers would be the other interesting play over Brian Thomas Jr. and Terry McLaurin. Running back, I'm still playing Kamara and Gibbs over J.K. Dobbins. So for the flex, I'm going to put Dobbins here, but honestly, ignore it. It's Jordan Mason. If you're telling me we have Jordan Mason, then we go ahead and we play Jordan Mason in that flex spot. But yeah, phenomenal lineup. Now let's move this over to let's actually answer some free questions in the live chat real quick. Let's get some free questions in the chat going. Stevie says, after I used code FLOCK and deposited it on Underdog, how do I get the free team review? Just make sure you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you made on Underdog Fantasy. Underdog every morning gets me the email address list that we had from the previous day's signups. And what I do at that point is I then send it over to the developer, well, at least one of the developers, and one of the developers actually accredits all those accounts on flockfantasy.com with a free review. So if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog today and you made that $10 deposit today, make sure today you have that free account set up on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you used on Underdog. That way we can go ahead and attach that free team review voucher to your account. Josh says, hey, Mason, are you not doing super chat team evals anymore? No, we're not doing super chats at all anymore. I think that it's way better for the live stream to do everything through the site. And also, whenever we did super chats, people would have to come in and super chat and then wait 45 minutes to an hour to get their question answered. And if they had to leave the live stream, they missed their answer. Here, when all the questions are through the site, you don't even have to be in the live stream because you get an exact clip sent to you of my answer with everything filled out. So even if you leave the stream, you actually get your answer. So the super chat system, obviously it worked for us for years, but just with scale, like I could turn on super chats. I just can't answer every single question that comes through super chat. And I don't want to turn on super chats and have somebody donate thinking that they're going to get me to answer their question, and then it doesn't get answered. The King says, bro, you said to start Andrews over Brock Bowers. You were wrong. I was 100% wrong. 100% wrong to say start Mark Andrews over Brock Bowers. I was 100% wrong to rank Mark Andrews over Brock Bowers coming into the season. And now we have gone through and I've actually updated the rankings on the site, and I have moved Brock Bowers up to tight end 4. Actually, we need to refresh this because we actually updated the George Kittle ranking with the Deebo Samuel news. So let's go ahead. Let's sort this. And yeah, by the way, with the site, y'all can always see the average expert rankings. Of course, if you want to see my rankings, you go ahead, you click the sort by drop down. I know these guys are getting their rest of season rankings updated today. You can see that mine were updated today, 9/16. You can click my name, click it there, and it will sort these ranks for you. You'll see I have Brock Bowers at tight end 4, and I have Mark Andrews down at tight end 8 in our rest of season ranks. So yes, very sorry that we had Mark Andrews ranked ahead of Bowers previously. Okay. Bryson says, any news on Mixon? I haven't seen anything. It does sound like Mixon is going to be okay, and you don't really need to stress too much. Let's move over. Dylan says, is there any hope for Darnell Mooney? We're about to see, my friend. We are about to see. Jason says, would you trade Dobbins for Ayuk and Moss? I would rather have Ayuk straight up over J.K. Dobbins. If you could trade Dobbins for Brandon Ayuk, you do it in a heartbeat. Brian says Kittle about to smash 100%. Like, that's why as soon as Deebo goes down, like obviously Brandon Ayuk slides up a bit. But honestly, I think Deebo being out of this offense helps George Kittle more than it helps Brandon Ayuk. I think it helps Kittle more than it helps Ayuk. Okay. Crowett says, trade Cup for CMC. Yes, I would. If you look at my overall rankings on the site right now, or actually, if you're on the site, you can do a couple different things. You can, if you just want to compare like running backs and receivers, not look at quarterbacks, you can go ahead and do that. But actually, yeah, we'll just do that. We'll look at the running backs and receivers because we're comparing Cup to CMC. I have McCaffrey ranked at 21 in my rest of season ranks. And I have moved Cup way down to 38 in our rest of season ranks. I think when both are healthy, CMC is a more valuable piece in Cup. And the thing with Cup, too, is this is a continued trend of us dealing with injuries over the past now 3 years. And with Cup as well, by the time he's back, Puka Nacua is going to be back. Or possibly Puka Nacua will be back. So where we had Cup ranked at wide receiver 3 this week, like there's no way in hell he's getting ranked there when Puka's in the game. Not saying that he's going to be a bad option, but he's going to be lower to he's going to be closer to low end wide receiver 1. Whereas when I think CMC comes back, maybe not his first week back into San Francisco, but maybe his second week, I'm putting him at number 1 overall in our flex ranks. Okay. Now let's move this over. Simon says trade McLaurin and Brian Robinson for Michael Pittman Jr. If you're trading McLaurin for Pittman, you're trading a turd for a turd. and you're throwing Brian Robinson Jr. in for it, I don't see what's the difference between Pittman and McLaurin at this point. They're both in offenses with quarterbacks that are going to run the ball that are not going to have a ton of passing volume. So I want to be super excited. Cal says, what's the deadline for Garrett Wilson to finally break out? I have no hesitation with Garrett Wilson. I think Wilson's going to crush. In the case of Drake London, I have no idea. I think London, we have been waiting for their breakout. Just simply does not look like it. I mean, at least week 1, it didn't look like it's going to happen. Obviously, we're going to see what happens in week 2. I think there's a wider range of outcomes with Drake London than there is Garrett Wilson. I could see Drake London absolutely crushing. I could see Drake London turning out to be one of the worst picks in drafts this year. I think there's a wide range of outcomes because we've never seen London be viable in fantasy. Whereas with Garrett Wilson, we've seen him be a top-end option before. With Zach Wilson under center, you look at the second half of Garrett Wilson's rookie year. I think that you look at the market share numbers that you've had through the first 2 weeks in New York. Like, honestly, I'm not stressing at all when it comes to Garrett Wilson. I think Wilson crushes. But let's go ahead. Let's pull back up the questions that we have on flockfantasy.com. Of course, if you want to get yourself a guaranteed answer on flockfantasy.com, you can purchase a trade question, a start-sit question, a full-blown team review. I will remind you, though, that the best way to get a team review, or at least the cheapest way to get a team review, is definitely taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy. Or if you head over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you're going to be getting a free team review in one of these live streams through flockfantasy.com. And at the same time, Underdog is actually dropping a couple promos. One, if you're new to Underdog, you are getting a free Jalen Hurts pick, more than less than half a total yard for this week. And they also have additional promos that are scheduled to drop, including a CeeDee Lamb free pick, more than less than half a total yard tomorrow as well. So make sure you take advantage of that with a link in the description and comment section. But let's move this over to our next trade question. Says, also have Breece, Moss, Nico, London, Kittle, Neighbors for the starting lineup. Higgins, Coleman, Chase Brown, Dowdle, and Puka on the IR. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's dive into this. So we have Josh Allen, Jaden Reed versus Hurts, Singletary, Etienne. Josh Allen to Jalen Hurts, slight downgrade. Jaden Reed to Travis Etienne, big time upgrade. Singletary, not really a big factor in this deal for me. I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Jalen Hurts side. If we knew that there was a very serious issue with A.J. Brown here, then maybe I'm a little less excited about it. But I don't view there to be a massive difference between Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. But let's move over to our next question here. It says, Mason, what do you think of the trade? I'm not currently starting Flowers. If you're not starting Flowers, if it's like a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, or you're just star-studded, I think we go ahead and we take Brock Bowers. I have moved Bowers up to my tight end for rest of season. Bowers looks like one of the best receiving tight ends in the league currently. Sunday Service coming out says, I submitted once before, but now the team is messed up with injuries. Any trades or ad drops you would do? I attached the waiver wire. Thank you for attaching the waiver wire, my friend. I think this is a Yahoo team, so you should be able to link your Yahoo account with flockfantasy.com, and we can look at your entire league. So, yeah, make sure you try to do it. If you're having any issues, you can send them in the site issues section of the Discord. One of the developers, I'm sure, will be happy to try to help you out, my friend. But anyway, looking at this, it's a 2 wide receiver, single flex format. So the wide receiver depth doesn't matter as we build this. To get an idea of the options that you're going to have on waivers, yeah, you have Austin Eckler, you have Braylon Allen, both on the waiver wire at running back. Rico Dowdle's on the waiver wire here as well. Going over to wide receiver, you have Shaheed, you have Judy, you have Johnston. So wide receiver options on waivers look great. So yeah, this is a team that, like, if you were to make a 2-for-1 deal, say hypothetically we were to trade Parkinson and a Jordan Love to go get a tight end upgrade, then at that point you're not just getting that tight end, but you're also picking up Jerry Judy, right? So you're getting that tight end and Judy. Now, moving this over to quarterback. We are currently sitting with Jaden Daniels in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, we have Jordan Love. So it is an awkward spot not being able to throw Love on the IR, and Love is just kind of clogging this roster. Rival says, Mason, you can't leak leagues that aren't public, so that's why there are screenshots. Yes, you can. We built out an extension, so you can, my friend. Okay. But anyway, looking at this. Looking at Daniels, he has the rushing upside where, to be completely honest with you, if you wanted to move on from Jordan Love, if you looked at the waiver wire and there are great options off of waivers, I would be okay with moving on from Love. Obviously not something that we are excited to do by any means. Quarterback's just tough with Love not being able to go to the IR. I do love the rushing upside of Daniels. Going over to wide receiver, we have Jefferson. Sounds like Jefferson's injury is not going to be serious. He is labeled day-to-day. The Vikings are 2-0 right now. So with the Vikings being 2-0, you'd assume that Jefferson tries to work himself back relatively quickly. We have Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle dealing with the Tua injury. Probably no longer somebody that we're super excited about. Going down to the bench, Keenan Allen dealing with his own injury. Deebo Samuel dealing with, oh my gosh. Look at this team. This is the perfect example of a team that just gets crushed this year. Waddle injured. Jefferson injured. Waddle, his quarterback is injured. Deebo injured. Evan Ingram injured. Jordan Love injured. Raheem Mostert injured. Keenan Allen injured. This is insane. This is crazy, my friend. Going over to running back, we have Kyron James Cook. We don't have anybody viable on the bench, but it's so hard to make bench moves when Evan Ingram, Jordan Love are both out. Like, our really effectively our only bench is Mostert, Keenan, and Worthy. And once Deebo, you're not going to be able to start Deebo this week. Deebo's going to have to be on the bench. So you're going to have to play Jalen Waddle and just send up a prayer that somehow Miami can have over 200 passing yards in this game. I think the main thing that you're going to have to do on this team is we're going to have to find a way to clear up some bench spots here. It absolutely sucks. But if we have Deebo injured, Ingram injured, Love injured, maybe Jefferson just missing this week, but we don't know. I mean, Jefferson could play this week too. But Keenan possibly missing this. Looking at all these injuries, I think you have to cut Jordan Love. I think you have to open up a spot on this bench for us to potentially make some waiver wire moves here. So I would look to move on from Jordan Love. Pick up a player like Carson Steele off the waiver wire. Pick up a player like Quentin Johnston off the waiver wire. Pick up a player like Kareem Hunt off waivers, obviously, depending on what happens there in Kansas City. Evan Ingram sounds like he's going to be out multiple weeks as well, but it looks like we don't even have an IR designation on this in this league. This is just a brutal, brutal spot to be in. To be honest with you, my friend, I don't know exactly what we can do. I think the main thing that you just have to do here is cut Love, move Deebo down to the bench, hope that Ingram, Mostert, Keenan come back relatively soon. Looking at Colby Parkinson, I know he very much disappointed this past week. Going into the future, maybe it was a little bit better with both the Cup and Puka injuries. If you wanted to cut Parkinson, if you had somebody like Hunter Henry on waivers, I think you can go ahead and do that as well. Looks like Xavier Worthy is now going to be somebody that you have to rely upon. You have to get Xavier Worthy in there for the flex spot this week. And yeah, sadly, you're also going to need to go through and you're going to have to start Waddle, even though you have no Tua, because we don't have another option here. But yeah, it sucks. But really the only moves to make is open up some spot on this bench to try to overcome the injuries that we have across the entire roster. And I don't know if Love has enough value in a one quarterback format. I'd rather cut Love and go get somebody like Jerry Jeudy. Or Shaheed. Honestly, either one of those players. But I'm sorry. I wish I had more for you, my friend. It is just extremely difficult for me to come up with anything there because, like you said, your team has just been brutalized with injuries. But let's move this over to our next one. And then question, Simon says, when do we get our free team review? You should have the free team review voucher in your flockfantasy.com account the day after you signed up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. As long as that same day, you also had set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address so we could find that account for you the following morning. Okay. But anyway, just wanted to say thanks for the advice on Kyler over Dak this week. Smashed it. Hopefully Saquon doesn't go nuclear tonight, being up by 24. What are we thinking next week? Much love, my friend. Really do appreciate you here. Looking at wide receiver, if Higgins plays this next week, I put Higgins in over Keon Coleman. Going over to our next question, I think the main spot is going to be here at the flex where we have Austin Eckler. Not super pumped about Eckler right now. You could look at Keon. Obviously, we have Hunt, P. Ryan. I don't think you can start either of the Chiefs' RBs until we see what the work looks like week one. I think I'd actually start Keon Coleman over Austin Eckler. Obviously, Keon gives you the goose egg this past week, but I think it's a very unique situation where the Bills just don't have to throw the ball. Can everybody spam the chat? Would you rather have Keon Coleman or would you rather have Austin Eckler in your starting lineup this week? Keon or Eckler in your lineup? Okay, let's see. 1 vote Keon. 2 votes Keon. Keon. Yeah, it looks like most people are saying Keon, even though it is funny that Eckler has scored more points than Keon so far this season. But I like the underlying usage we've seen for Keon. Now, Shady Aqua, trade question. Are we going to look at Nico Collins versus Kyron Williams, Zay Flowers? Deebo's out for a few weeks, so my short-term depth is lacking. Looks like this is a format where depth matters as well. I would rather have Nico Collins over Kyron Williams, but I do think if you need depth, this is a completely fine price point to pivot. Now, J.M. Westy says, I'm concerned that this is more lateral than it seems with the Colts offense looking so bad and Dobbins going off 2 weeks in a row. I need to start both players in either case. I have CMC on the IR, Jordan Mason filling in. The other running back is Jerome Ford. So I know needing to start 2 players. Amari has just been absolutely garbage in Cleveland. But Michael Pittman Jr. has been very bad where the passing volume isn't there in Indy either. I think by far and away the best player in the deal is Jonathan Taylor still, even though Dobbins has been crushing. I want Amari and Taylor relatively easily, to be honest with you. Now, Brutus, happy to see a longtime member of the flock saying, hey, Mason, got this trade available. The team is Dak, Sharp, Gibbs, Neighbors, Amon-Ra, Kincaid, Ford, McConkey. The bench, we have Braylon Allen, Tank Bigsby, Ty Chandler, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt. So very shallow bench, going from Lamb to Neighbors, downgrade, but you're also picking up Walker, Kittle. I don't really care about Shakir and Zeke in this deal. It's really Lamb versus Neighbors, Walker, and George Kittle. Right now in the flex spots, we're having to start Ladd McConkey and Jerome Ford. I hate, and I want to repeat, I hate trading one guy for 5. With that being said, it seems like getting Neighbors, Walker, Kittle, Zeke, and Shakir maybe is enough depth. If you're telling me that this is a league that depth matters, where it does look like it's a 12-team format where we can start 4 receivers from week-to-week perspective, and we need said depth, Kittle gets the bump based off the injury that you have to Deebo. Neighbors is crushing. We'll get Walker back in. I don't really care about Shakir and Zeke. I think we'll take, I'm not taking the 5. I'm really taking the trio here. But yeah. Okay, you're saying you get CD. I don't think I trade all 5 of these players. I don't think I do it. Now, Julio, League Analyzer is not loading that. I'm sure it will in 1 second. Let me answer this question first. And I think we already actually answered this one. So you know what? Let's go ahead and let's answer some of the free questions in the chat right now. I don't see any questions. It's all regarding the Lamb trade. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat so we can get to them. And of course, I will remind you, if you have not done so already, please go down there, hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we have live streamed pretty much every single day for 100 plus days. I'm going to be live streaming every single day until the season starts. So if you're not subscribed already, go down there and hit that subscribe button. And we are only 2 likes away from hitting 900 likes on the stream. So please go down there, drop that like. Zip says, should I move off of Jerome Ford or Jaden Reed? My friend, I had Jerome Ford as a sell high candidate last week, and I had Jaden Reed as a sell high candidate last week. After this week, you can't sell him for anything. You're not going to get anything, my guy. It's too late. I'm sorry. Okay. Sven says, Jordan Mason, sell or hold. I have him ranked as a mid RB2 rest of season because he's going to be a low end RB1 until CMC comes back. When CMC comes back, he's literally nothing. So it depends how long you think that CMC is going to be out. I'll say if you are so loaded that Jordan Mason's on your bench right this second, then you for sure need to go out there and you for sure need to be selling Jordan Mason. Now, obviously, if it's a spot where you are relying upon him, as most people with Jordan Mason are, then you hold him. Okay. Duran says, why can't we see Mason's experts anymore on flockfantasy.com? Can't see all the experts. So if you go to desktop, you can see the experts rankings drop down, my friend. On mobile, the developers are hopefully going to be adding that today. Obviously, we did a complete redesign. So this little drop down button on mobile is being added right now, but on desktop, you can see it right there. This is the live site on flockfantasy.com, and you can see all my rankings. Okay, but moving this over. Bryson says, Chris Olave and Jordan Mason for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have the Olave side. I think long-term, I'd rather have St. Brown. Short-term, obviously, Jordan Mason's production is going to help you out. Simon says, I'm an old Flock Underdog user. It's a new offer that started September 5th, my friend. If you used promo code Flock in years past for a different promo, it's not that you get every Underdog promo until the end of time. It's like if you use promo code Flock this offseason on Underdog Fantasy, what you got is you got the draft guide. But obviously a draft guide's not going to help people out when they sign up to Underdog with code Flock now. So now they get the free team review. Bugdad says Rashee Rice and for Jamar Chase or Garrett Wilson or neither. I rank these guys Chase, Wilson, then Rice. I would for sure trade Rashee Rice for Jamar Chase if I could, for sure. Okay. Yeah, and I'm sorry for the confusion, Simon. Straw Batten says, should I drop Zamir or keep him against the Panthers? Zamir White did actually play the vast majority of snaps with the Raiders this past week. The issue is they didn't run the ball. Like the usage for Zamir White this week was actually better than it was week 1. So if you didn't drop him after week 1, I wouldn't drop him after week 2. Jack says, should I receive Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett, get Brandon Ayuk and Jaden Reed? I would rather have Brandon Ayuk over Mike Evans, and I'd rather have Jaden Reed over Tyler Lockett. So no, I think it's a horrible trade. 44 MS uses. Are we buying low on Chase? To be honest with you, I am not somebody that can give you a good answer. Since Chase is my number 1 guy in the Flock League, I am so biased with him that I am just kind of pretending that the issues in Cincinnati are going to work themselves out. I'm pretending that Chase started off slow because he was not there for training camp, and that it will be much better going into the future. So I am not the right person to answer a Jamar Chase question. Like, I still have Jamar Chase ranked wide receiver 3. I still have Chase ahead of Jefferson. I have him ahead of Tyreek now with the 2 injury. I have him ahead of A.J. Brown. I have Jamar Chase ranked wide receiver 3 in my rest of season rankings. Do I think you should value him at wide receiver 3? No, I'm telling you, you shouldn't listen to my opinion on him, to be honest. Naod the Goats, Naod, says, do you still have faith in Rashad White? Rashad White has 25 carries this year for 49 total rushing yards. Rashad White's currently averaging fewer than 2 rushing yards per carry. We saw the inefficiency last year as well. So definitely it's a scary spot where I think it's hard to have a ton of faith with Rashad White. But Carlos says, are you trading Jamar Chase for Nico Collins? I don't know what that is asking. I'd rather have Jamar Chase over Nico Collins if that's what you're asking. Give me Chase over Collins. But let's go ahead and let's pull up more questions that we have on flockfantasy.com. Julio, I'm sorry. We're going to have to get to your team off the live stream. For whatever reason, I have an issue with it right now. And what I'm actually going to do right now is I'm actually going to skip the team reviews on flockfantasy.com. We'll get to them in 1 second. But I want to make sure I answer all the trade questions and the start-sit questions, just in case any of those need to be answered before the game tonight. But anyway, this trade question coming out from Taco says, I'm very close to getting this deal done. So looking at this trade, going from Godwin to Lamb, we're getting the upgrade. Kyron to Ford, we're getting a downgrade. Looking at the squad right now, we have James Conner at RB2. Honestly, I think I am kind of fine just going and getting the elite level player here and getting CeeDee Lamb. I think this isn't the worst price to sell high on Godwin, who obviously has just been absolutely crushing. Like, Godwin has outscored Lamb so far this season. But let's go over to our next trade question. This one coming out from Ballin Boy says, is this a no-brainer considering I'm a top 3 contender this year? Couldn't get my team from ESPN League Linked, but I have Allen, Kenneth, Pollard, blah, 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 blah. Because honestly, I don't really care. Because Jahmyr Gibbs over Kamara here, especially if this is like a dynasty, this is a keeper formats, like by a mile. Brian Thomas Jr. over, Calvin Ridley, Tomato, Tyler Lockett doesn't bridge the gap. I'd rather have Gibbs. I know the Saints have been absurd, but I still think that the Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I still view Gibbs as a running back I want over Kamara here. And Lockett, I don't even know if it's worth a roster spot at this point. Now, going over to our next question, this one coming out from Only Terrence says, I have Jordan Mason. Would you trade him now to get the most value before CMC returns? So this is an interesting one. I actually think, yes, I will go get Jahmyr Gibbs. Because obviously Ayuk gets the bump now with no Deebo Samuel. So it is a very close, and I think it's a very fair deal here. But I am still viewing Jahmyr Gibbs as that true elite level asset. And if you don't need the Mason production now, then I don't mind cashing out and getting that piece before CMC comes back in. Now, Schlinky coming out says, hey, Mason, the rest of the team will see that if we need to. Let's make sure that this is a close deal first. Chase versus Tyreek, it's kind of up to you. There, I have Chase over Tyreek, but it seems like most people in the live chat disagree with that. Going over to running back, I would rather have Kenneth Walker over DeAndre Swift. Receiver, I'd rather have Pickens over Brian Thomas. I don't care. I don't care what the squad is. It's 2 receivers and a running back for 2 receivers and a running back. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Chase side. I am less concerned about Chase going into the future because I believe his quarterback play is going to be okay. Whereas I can't say the same thing with Tyreek in Miami. Now, like I said, we are getting to all the trade questions real quick before the game starts because I want to make sure we're not missing any. But you can always submit a trade question on flockfantasy.com, a start-sit question on flockfantasy.com. You can also get a team review as well. I will say, instead of purchasing a team review on the site, definitely the cheapest way to get it is actually just going through and taking advantage of the Underdog offer that we have. Or if you go and use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, with the link in the description in the comment section, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with promo code FLOCK, you are also going to be getting a free team review in one of these live streams. And you will get a Jalen Hurts special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for tonight's game. And Underdog's actually dropping additional promos this week, including a CeeDee Lamb special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. So make sure you take advantage of that. You can find the link in the description and comment section. Well, let's move this over and answer our next trade question. This one coming out from Noah. We have 2 offers. Okay, well, let's check this one out here, my guy. Chase to Rice, downgrade. Harrison and McBride, downgrade. We're picking up Pollard to do it. I'm valuing Evan Ingram as a 0 in this deal. And even while valuing Evan Ingram as a 0 in this deal, I want the Jamar Chase side. Another way to view this is Harrison versus Rashad Rice. These two guys are about the same for me. Would I rather have Jamar Chase or Tony Pollard and Trey McBride? Give me Jamar Chase. Give me Jamar Chase. Jermaine says Mixon to the IR. He deletes it, so maybe that's not true. It scares me enough to go ahead and pull it up. Let's see. He had a military uniform in his profile pic, so I'm assuming a military man's not going to lie to us. But let's go ahead and let's see. No, I don't see anything with Joe Mixon. Mixon is not to the IR. Okay. And in the comments also, Rice and McBride for Chase and Ingram. I mean, I'd rather have the Rice and McBride deal than this one, for sure. But Sal Perazzi says, submitted the team earlier, the all-injured one. The guy that has Bowers and Kincaid. Okay, honestly, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to get Kincaid here. If this is the team that had like Evan Ingram and we just have absolutely nobody to tight end, I think you can get Kincaid and cut all your tight ends. If we're just desperate for roster spots. I understand that Worthy obviously has been better than Kincaid so far this year, but if you look at the underlying usage regarding Dalton Kincaid, I still stand by. I think you are in a really good spot in terms of what we should expect rest of season in an offense that should be near the top of the NFL in total points scored for a tight end that's playing pretty much every single snap and running every single route. Give me Kincaid. I know people in the live chat are not going to like it, but can everybody spam the chat? Would you rather have Kincaid or Xavier Worthy in this deal? Kincaid or Worthy? Please let me know. And we are 10 likes away from hitting 1,000 likes on this stream. So please go down there and drop that like button if you have not done so already. Okay. Kincaid. Yeah, it looks like actually everybody in the chat's on Kincaid. We got one Worthy team. But yeah, I think the Dalton Kincaid side's easily a spot for me. You can see in my rankings too, I have Kincaid over Worthy. Elias coming out. Big question here. Says, please note the league is a non-PPR. Won't let me change it. No, thank you for letting me know this, my friend. That is definitely going to help out a ton. Non-PPR, obviously, this is a situation in which we are wanting to prioritize the running backs and at the same time actually having an elite level quarterback. So going through and looking at this, Demarcus Robinson in a non-PPR format makes no difference to me. Like, let's go ahead and let's just remove some of the pieces that are kind of meaningless here. Let's remove Demarcus Robinson. Looking at this piece by piece, James Cook versus Devonta Smith, non-PPR, give me James Cook. Romeo Dobbs, kind of meaningless here as well. Joe Burrow versus Brian Robinson, kind of up to you, to be honest. Romeo Dobbs versus Singletary and Ladd McConkey. Give me Singletary and Ladd McConkey. I actually think it's a very fair deal. If it was a full PPR format, it'd be this side very easily. Non-PPR, obviously, James Cook's very exciting, but I still think we probably go this side because Brian Robinson's maybe a little more appealing in a non-PPR format, and you don't have to worry as much about Eckler stealing some of those receptions. Okay. But let's see if we have any more start-sit questions or any more trade questions on the site before we get back to the roster reviews. Raider Power says start-sit. Say Mason really wanted to send the question regarding the team review. I purchased on Sunday. Purchased it 30 minutes before the game started. So priority went to start-sit questions. I was sent the link on the site, but not pulling up my team review. I've searched through the live stream and can't seem to find it. Thanks for the help. No, thank you, my friend. Please let me know. Can you shoot me a message on Discord and I'll be happy to help you out with that. If you're not in the Discord, you can find the link in the description or you can email me, mason.dodd@flockfantasy.com. But yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, please shoot me a message if you're having any of those concerns. Now, in terms of who we would start with this team, this next week, if A.J. Brown's going to go with the hamstring, I would go Jalen Waddle still, probably over Tank Dell, even with the Tua injury. We're going to go Gibbs for sure. We would go Charbonnet if Walker misses. If Walker plays, pivot to Warren. Quarterback, we're going to probably go Kyler based off what we saw. And then going down to the flex, I think you're going to go ahead and play Tank Dell. But yeah, please shoot me a message if you're having that issue. Now, Drew coming out saying Pickens, Singletary versus Waddle and Shaheed. So even post-Tua injury, I'd rather have Jalen Waddle over George Pickens. Now, both teams have garbage quarterback play, but at least in the case of Jalen Waddle, you have the upside in the long term of that changing. Shaheed versus Singletary, give me Singletary, but it doesn't matter too much. I'd rather just have the best player in the deal, and I'd rather have Jalen Waddle here. Okay. But let me answer some of the free questions that we have in the live chat real quick. And oh, dear God. Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions in the chats. Andulo says, who is the wide receiver one on the Rams going forward? My bet for the Rams wide receiver one would be Demarcus Robinson. But just because the Rams, the past 2 years, the wide receiver one job was extremely valuable when it was Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be that same thing with Demarcus Robinson. Like, I think Robinson's a wide receiver that should be rostered in every league. But would I tell you to start him this week? Probably not. Like, I think, honestly, he should be somebody that's on your bench. 44 MSU says, where's Marv rest of season? I actually did not move Marvin Harrison Jr. down our rankings after week 1, so I did not have to move him up our rankings after week 2. Kind of stays at the same exact spot. He is wide receiver 9. Obviously, we moved Deebo down with the injury here. But I would still rather have Garrett Wilson over Marvin Harrison Jr., which I know a lot of people are going to think that's crazy. I would rather have Nico over Harrison. I'd rather have A.J. Brown over Harrison. But yeah, I do have Harrison as a top 10 guy at wide receiver 9. Tyler says Tutu. Tutu Atwell's so small. I just don't see any upside with Tutu. Ty says nobody wants Christian Kirk. Yeah, I mean, the thing about trading Christian Kirk is you'd have to find a sucker. So the reality is Christian Kirk isn't as much of a sell high guy as he was for us coming into the season. And instead, now at this point, it's more like, okay, is he a cut guy? You're not going to be able to sell him. Do you go out there and just cut him? 44 MSU says the Rams are cooked. One thing, let's see, what are the, what's the spread on this Rams game for week 3? Because obviously Vegas will be pricing in that you have no Cup. They'll be pricing in that you have no Puka. So checking out the Rams, these are all the week 3 lines. I'm not sponsored by this site. I would love to be sponsored by the site because I use it all the time. This is thelines.com, something like that. I just look up the lines week 3 and this is what shows up. So the Rams go up against the Niners and they are 7.5 point dogs here. And that's at home too. But obviously a home game for the Rams versus Niners isn't so much a home game. FG23 Lakers says, who should I replace Cooper Kupp with in half PPR format? We dropped our waiver wire wide receiver video about in 2 or 3 hours ago. That should help you with that, my friend. Edward says, Kamara RB1 rest of season. I need to take a massive L. I moved Alvin Kamara from being a running back 2 for us in our rankings up to the RB7. I did not put Alvin Kamara as the RB1 overall. Obviously, if you're looking at total points scored, he is right there. So I understand the argument, but I don't know. It's tough. Ty says, can we see the dog? Let's see if we can show the girl. Can you see the girl over there? Wanted some attention. Wanted to go on a walk, per usual. Okay. And Matt says, Kamara RB0. He's that good. Kamara RB0. He's that good. Simply Connected says Smith over London tonight. I think so. Let's look at what you have with the Underdog pick'ems between Smith and London. So Underdog right now has Devonta Smith at higher, lower, 6 receptions, 13.35 fantasy. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. What do they have Goddard versus? They have Goddard down at 8.15, and they have Smith at 13.35. This is what I need for the Flock League this week. I have talked so much nonsense. I have talked so much smack. For the people that have been watching the Flock League YouTube channel, oh, y'all are going to see what I'm talking about tomorrow morning. But I've talked so much garbage all week to Nathan by matchup that if I don't win this week, I don't know how I can show my face around here anymore. I need to win. I need Devonta Smith to outscore Dallas Goedert by 2.5 points. On Underdog, they have Drake London, higher, lower, 11.5 fantasy points. They have Drake London, higher, lower of 4.5 receptions. So, yeah, I mean, Underdog right now is projecting out, and they have the lines much higher with Smith than they do London. Okay. Jake the Snake says, yeah, it's embarrassing your squad's cheeks. Talking about someone who's going to be 2-0, my guy. What's your record? 2-0, baby. 2-0. With Jamar Chase doing nothing. Imagine when Chase starts producing. What's going to be. And what's actually hilarious is my week 3 matchup had Pacheco and Cooper Kupp. So your boy's looking like he's possibly going to be 3-0. Okay. Should I trade Waddle away? The thing is, your league mates know that Tua is injured. I think Tua does come back. So it really comes down to what your expectations are for the time that Tua misses. If you think Tua misses the entire season, then yeah, you should probably trade away Waddle. J Moss says 2-0 gang with Laporta doing nothing. Yeah, I am in that 2-0 gang. Same thing with Laporta doing nothing for me and Jamar Chase doing nothing. Imagine when these guys get going. Just imagine. Vintage Josh says, who are your 2 running backs? I know everybody clowned on me. Everybody clowned on me going, oh, you didn't take a running back till round 7. You didn't take a running back till round 7. My 2 running backs are James Conner and Ramondre Stevenson, baby. So what do you want from me here? What do you want? That's why I got running back production. I got running back production for days. Pitcher in and says, you're not 2-0 yet. I'm not 2-0 yet, but I DM'd Devonta Smith last night. I said, hey, man, get a good night's sleep. Rooting for you tomorrow. So hopefully he listened to me. Obviously, you got to take a little more of a hands-on approach with your fantasy football coaching. That's a different side of the game that I'll teach y'all one day. But, of course, real quick before kickoff, if y'all want to take advantage of any of these Underdog promos, find that link in the description in the comment section. Code FLOCK will give you a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with code FLOCK, you will be getting a Jalen Hurts free pick tonight, more than less than half a total yard. You get a free team review in a live stream through flockfantasy.com. And Underdog is actually offering additional promos later in the week, such as the CeeDee Lamb free pick that drops on Tuesday. So make sure you take advantage of that, ladies and gentlemen. Ty says, how long until Ayuk starts producing? Ayuk will produce this week. I will probably rank Ayuk as the top 10 receiver this week. No Deebo. Let's see. Brandon says, trade Godwin for Kyron in an 8-person league, and 100% go get Kyron Williams. 8-person league, wide receiver depth doesn't matter. Vintage Josh says, is Braylon Allen startable? No, he is not. Not in any game that Breece Hall plays. But obviously, if Breece Hall were to miss, then at that point, you would rank Braylon Allen arguably as a top 12 running back in fantasy. Okay. J Mall says, Kamara over HN rest of season with no Tua. Been trying to tell you. My thing is, I see HN as like the younger, more explosive Kamara, or at least that's how I saw it previously. Obviously, when Kamara has produced so well so far, maybe we do need to go through and we maybe need to reevaluate that stance. But real quick, let me just double check over there on flockfantasy.com to make sure that we are not missing out on any of the trade questions or start-sit questions before this starts. Before the game kicks off, we have a trade question: Tony Pollard versus Deebo Samuel. So it sounds like Deebo's going to be out a couple weeks. I still would prefer Deebo Samuel over Pollard. If you were looking at Tajay Spears obviously missing time will make Pollard very interesting, but Spears is now just labeled day-to-day. Big John coming out with a trade question. Says 44 MSU. Happy to see it. Says CMC owner has HN and a bunch of nothing and is 0-2. I mean, obviously, we would take McCaffrey here by a country mile. And if you can convince them that they need the production of David Montgomery in the short term, I mean, good for us. But Jermaine says Bucky Irving taking White's job. Maybe. But I think this should be it. I want to tune into this game. And everybody, here's what I'm going to need from you. Please, for the love of God. The second that the video drops tomorrow morning on the Flock League YouTube channel, I need you to flood the comments saying that Mason has the best team, Mason's the most handsome, Mason's the smartest, Mason's the funniest. All the creators read every single comment that y'all leave. So if we can get 100 people to leave comments like that, it will be freaking hilarious. They will lose their minds. So please, tomorrow morning on the Flock League YouTube channel, when we drop that video, make sure you go leave a bunch of obnoxious comments about me. Obviously, I'm being as obnoxious as I can in those videos, so it'll be hilarious. But much love, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great night, and I really hope that Devonta Smith outscores Dallas Goedert by 2.5 points. And, of course, I'll be live after the game tonight recapping everything that happened.